Okay, we are hopefully live. Let me just set this up, and then the stream today is going to be we were going to be watching some art advice videos. So that's what this is all about. We want to know how to sell our artwork, how to become professionals. So while I finish setting up, that's what we're in for. Yeah, and while I'm doing that, as you can see on the screen, this is an older artwork that I worked on. So this was an alien character design. And just so that we've got something running in the background while I'm busy being a good old boomer trying to set this up. Yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting just to have a little bit of artwork. So this is me just laying down the flat shadow in flat tones. Alien guy in it. Yeah, because this is the thing. I mean, being an artist, you've got a couple of different things to consider. Firstly, the art itself. You need to know how to draw, how to paint, how to sculpt if that's your jam, if that's the thing you're after. Obviously, for me, character designs, anime characters, video game characters, all that cool stuff. That's what I'm into. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to make money from. But how do you make money from it? Obviously, you need to know how to sell it. You need to know how to turn what is otherwise, somewhat of a skill, somewhat of a sort of passion, somewhat of a hobby into something a little bit more professional. So I want to learn how to do that. And there's loads of resources online that basically tell us how to do that. I just need to go through it all. And if I can weed out the wheat from the chaff, then hopefully that's something I can add to my future YouTube channel videos. Okay, so this time lapse aside, I think let's get cracking on to learning stuff, or at least I'm hoping to learn something. Just pause out a bit if I just need something else to run in the background while I'm gonna talk about this. Okay, so this is the first one. So I've got a little playlist here. This is Martha May Ronson. Let's see what Martha May Ronson does. Now, obviously, off the bat, I can tell she isn't drawing anime fan art. That's not her thing. She's gonna no doubt be someone who does more fine art, probably portraits, landscapes, and I don't know, maybe flowers, judging by the shirt. Okay, but let's see what Martha has to say about being an artist.
Yourself, you need a big following to start making money from your art. Think again. You don't need thousands of followers. All you need is a strategy. So in this video, I'm going to be walking you through exactly how you can start selling your art even if no one knows who you are yet. Even if your follower count is in the double digits, or even if you've been telling yourself you need more visibility before you make your first sale. For more videos and all things related to art business, be sure to like.
Okay, so this is going to be something that's helping people that don't have an audience, which is good because I don't think most people do have an audience, at least not a significant audience. I think people are struggling and trying to figure out what to do. And, I always talk about the 99 percenters that aren't quite making it, and it's always that 1% at the very top, upper echelons of the art game that seems to be doing really well with the whole art thing. So most of us aren't going to have followers, and it doesn't necessarily mean that our work is bad. It's just that's how it is. It's always this select few that sort of end up kind of running off with all the potential followers and stuff, and then you're trying to just play second fiddle to a lot of that. So be interesting to hear what she's got to say, to see if there's anything of value, at least in my position.
Like, subscribe and hit that notification bell to get notified every time I release a new video. Before we dive in, let me introduce myself if you're new here. I'm Martha and I worked in the contemporary art world for over a decade. I worked my way up in my career, working in contemporary art galleries in London, and became a gallery director. I'm now an art business strategist, and I help artists go from struggling to sell £80 works to regularly selling works for £12,000 or more. Through the Artist Accelerator, I've helped artists get full-page features in magazines, increase their online sales by 3 times, and even become fully booked out with commissions for an entire year. And if you'd like to learn more about the programme and practical ways to create reliable and sustainable income streams without sacrificing your creativity, integrity, or precious time in the studio, you can click the link in the description below to apply to work with me. So let's get into the video. The first thing that has to shift.
Okay, so I don't blame people for hustling and trying to, run a business, but really off the bat, it's basically the whole gist of this is going to be, I run an art program, I can help you get sales, take my course, it's only, £3,000, $5,000, and then you too could potentially be selling your artwork for £12,000 or $15,000 a pop and never have to worry again. And I normally say to people, or I normally expect from people, I think people expect for people that you'll offload the value for free and then you'll get to the sales pitch at the end. She's sort of slightly going in with the sales pitch up front, which is fine. At least now we know what we're in for here.
Shift is your mindset. So there's a persistent myth in the art world, especially online, that you need to be highly visible to make money, that you have to build a big following before anyone is actually going to take you seriously, that likes and follows somehow translate into income, but the truth is they don't. Sales comes from strategy, not popularity.
Okay, I mean, that's true insofar as, you can have 1 million subscribers. If none of those subscribers are buyers, then, what do you do? So, that's going to be an issue. Alex Deranged, you've seen this video before. Okay, so what did you make of it? Is it worth me continuing with? I thought we'd start with something that's 10 minutes, just to ease us into it. But I always think with art, obviously me being someone more so into the anime fan art, pop culture scene, a lot of these talks about the fine art business, about contemporary art, people that have exhibitions in, London, Paris, New York galleries. It's like, it's not really for me, is it? I mean, it's not that I wouldn't say no to potentially exploring those avenues, but it's just not a world that I come from. The whole art space gets it's so like, art is such a general term, and there's so many like subgenres within it, and people that are sort of coming into this from a background in galleries, and there's a whole different clientele and a whole different kind of culture around both those two different worlds. So okay, so Alex, I only watched it once, probably saved it into my art business category. Yeah, I mean, I've got a whole playlist now of about 30 of these, and I thought I just need to get through these because I'm on a journey to become a full-time professional artist, and obviously to do that, it's we're talking about making money here, and I think if there's some advice I can get to kind of shortcut my way to it, I can then basically talk more about that in my sort of full-length videos and stuff. So. My ad will go, looking for art you want to launder your money with? Look no further. Yeah. Okay, well that's the thing, isn't it? A lot of people talk about either money laundering or tax write-offs when it comes to art, which is a sorry state of affairs. And that type of art is a lot of this sort of modern contemporary, high ticket price art. And it makes you wonder how many people are actually doing that. There's a lot of whispers about, people selling artwork and making a lot of money. And you think, I wonder how much of that is like very legit sort of stuff and how much of it is kind of not so much. Anyway, let's crack on with the video and see what she's got to say.
I've worked with artists who have 100,000 followers on Instagram and still struggle to sell their work, not because of the quality of their work, but because they don't know how to price it, position it, or attract the right buyers. And they don't have a clear pathway that moves someone from I like this to I'm buying this. You don't need 10,000 people. You need 10 of the right ones. And even then, not all at once. Just one buyer, one sale. That's how it starts. So if you've been telling...
Okay, I want to say something about this, because the amount of times recently I've heard people say, you don't need your 1,000,000 subscribers. You don't need your, 100,000. You just need 10 art buyers, or you just need 100 loyal fans or 1,000 loyal fans. And I always think it's funny that you don't actually get to choose that. You don't just set out with the goal of thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to get some loyal fans that are going to buy, and that's what I'm going to do. You just basically put work out into the world, and then you see what you get back. And if you're lucky, you might get 100,000 subscribers or followers, but you don't necessarily get the choice to choose either that or the 100 loyal fans or the 10 loyal fans. I kind of think that it's always pitched that, it's like this common sense, obvious thing that you should be like, well, of course, why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you trying to get the buyers? Why are you just trying to get the subscribers? But if you're serious about selling your artwork, which eventually most people will do, I think that's common sense, such that they'll come to that conclusion on their own. I think most people will at some point realize that, yeah, I need to find art buyers now, and it's not sort of like some special advice that if only you were told that you needed to seek the art buyers, then maybe you'd have the success. So I'm sort of putting this down a little bit, but basically I've already pre-recorded a video that's due to come out this week, which talks about this whole point, and it kind of thickly. Then I'm kind of not interested in the idea of you need buyers rather than subscribers, because anyone could say that. And I've never heard, maybe there's videos out there, advice out there that would tell you exactly how to do that, but I've never heard a very detailed, foolproof strategy for going into a sort of artistic business venture with the sole purpose of just getting the buyers. So, I mean, that might be all my fault. I'm willing to admit that, there's a lot of holes in my game, and until I start filling them, I realise that I've got some problems here. But okay, so Alex, I think my internet's crapping out. It keeps buffering intermittently. Not sure if it's me or you. It could be me. I mean, you're welcome to try some other live streams or whatever. Just come back to this one, see if it's a me thing or a you thing. According to YouTube, it says the stream status is excellent. So who knows? But I've had it before where it said that stream status was poor, and apparently people were still happy and able to watch the videos. To the question, are you freelancing mainly, or do you sell art prints? I'm trying to go solely into selling art and art prints. That's my goal now. I've kind of realised that the trouble with freelancing and taking on commission work is you're kind of capped by the amount of hours that you can work. And again, this is quite obvious sort of advice or sort of an insight. But yeah, if someone wants a piece of artwork and that piece of artwork is going to take me 30 hours, then I have to kind of try and make sure that 30 hours, that full, say, week of work is going to equate to a week's worth of money that can pay for the bills to live. So let's just say, £500 or $700, something like that. And actually, for the sort of artwork I do, it's generally quite hard for someone, especially on a regular basis, to keep paying me say £500 for a piece of artwork. So I've kind of realised that it would be better if I could create like a single product that takes me 30, 40 hours, and over the long term sell that, over multiple iterations. And I have been doing that. I started making a little record of like the artwork I've created as prints, and then how much of those have sold. And some of these artworks like the worst ones have made me like £200 for selling a piece of artwork as a print, as a product, and the best ones are making like £2,000. So I'm kind of on the journey to kind of ramp that up and actually make it sustainable. So that's just what I'm thinking. But I'm an artist. We're artists. We're beggars, and beggars can't be choosers. Sometimes mixing in freelancing and commissions as well isn't a bad idea. And I'm actually speaking to an artist at the minute who's sort of helping me with a bit of my artwork, who does do very well. He makes hundreds of thousands of dollars selling his commissioned work. He does book covers and things. So it can be done. You can make perhaps more money, if you're that kind of artist, just doing the freelancing. So I'm not knocking it down. It's just my thoughts on it. Yeah, okay, what we got? So, hi Philip, sorry. Phil or Philip, depends how you want to be called. Subscribed to your channel a month ago and been enjoying your content. Well, thanks very much. Yeah, appreciate that. It's funny, I almost don't realise, or not don't realise, I almost feel weird that people would potentially enjoy my content, 'cause I know I'm coming from this more of a sort of critical angle. I try to be the counterpoint to the videos that we're watching, where someone will say, I've got the solution, and then I'll basically come along and shoot them down and tell them that actually that's a bit of a shit solution. It's not really going to help anyone. And I do that because I think that has utility. And I get a bit sick and tired of people promising answers but don't actually get to the point or something that's actionable. But I realise that is quite a negative way to look at content creation. I think people generally do a lot better when they're a lot more encouraging and a lot more positive with things. And I feel like I'm more, the negative guy who's going to, make people question their whole existence by the time I'm through with them. So Alex, yeah, so you're streaming and realised nobody was watching yet. So if you're going to get the ball rolling to help the algorithm, well, I really appreciate that, Alex. Yeah, that's one of these things. Like, I don't announce these streams. I just decided tonight I would put something up, and because I don't have 100,000 subscribers, I normally expect one to or zero, between 0 and 1 people to sort of stop by, have a look, see what this is all about. And that's fine with me, because I'm just going to be watching videos and hopefully learning from it. And if I can commentate and give some feedback, and we can just discuss it, chat, then all the better, really. So anyway, I will crack on, because we're talking about mindset here. I think it's the mindset of having building the buyer base rather than the subscriber base.
Telling yourself you need to be more visible, because by being visible you can make more money. It's time to reframe that idea. Visibility brings attention, not necessarily income. What builds income is a strong foundation, clarity, positioning, and a sales process that actually works. And truthfully, trying to build a massive audience too soon can become a distraction. Creating content, chasing engagement, learning the algorithm, that's time and energy you could be using to refine your offer and connect with genuine art buyers. Now, I'm not saying social media...
A good point, because I've noticed this year, I'm trying to figure out YouTube. I'm trying to figure out how to even talk in front of a camera. Like, I generally have social anxiety and stuff, so this is kind of weird for me. But so that whole thing of being in front of a camera, building like camera confidence and sort of public speaking prowess, is actually a job in of itself. And because I'm concentrating on figuring out how to edit videos or put videos out there that might be mildly relevant or whatever, and build a channel, try and build something of substance. I've got a long way to go, but I'm getting there. I've made a start, and I'm very aware that because of that, the whole art and design, drawing, painting, that kind of side of things has actually gone by the wayside a little bit. So yeah, it's not a bad idea to really kind of get stuck into the art and make sure you nail that necessarily before going into the whole self promotion thing. So I am in agreement.
Media doesn't matter, it can be such a powerful tool, but it's not your business model. Sales are. That's why it's so important to focus on the right things like positioning, pricing, and connecting with real buyers instead of putting everything on hold until you've built a huge following. The second piece is understanding your market. Now, if you don't have a large audience, you need to be intentional and strategic about who you're trying to reach. So ask yourself who actually buys your kind of work, not just who likes it on Instagram. Are you creating pieces that appeal to interior designers? Are your collectors people investing in high-end home decor? Or are you speaking more to local buyers who value supporting artists in their local community? You don't need a platform to.
And this is an interesting thing about the whole finding your audience. Because again, this is very common advice for art guru type gives. You know, if you want success on either social media or selling your artwork, it's sort of, well, you need to find your audience. But that can be quite difficult, I find. I mean, demographically, I find with the things that I sell, like I do comic conventions, I've done, say, 40 comic shows. So I'm used to selling to hundreds and hundreds of people at these comic shows. And obviously, that is partly the demographics of people that like comics and films and anime, stuff like that. That's what people go to there for. But even within that, like the age range varies and the sort of gender varies. I mean, I'd say for me personally, I'm sort of 70% male, but then I've still got that 30% female uh, that like my artwork. So it's hard, and perhaps not just hard, but do you like you have to ask the question: do you want to necessarily pigeonhole yourself when you're creating artwork to just trying to cater for a very specific type of person? Because I think really at the end of the day, you just want to create the artwork that you want to create, and then you kind of it's basically what I'm trying to say is I feel like the market needs to find you rather than you necessarily needing to be intentional in finding a market to then cater for. I mean, again, I might not be correct in saying that. So I'll just catch up with a couple of comments. Um, okay, so Phil's got okay. I have a bit of a struggling art channel. I used to work in animation in the 90s. Oh, that's interesting. So I wonder whether that was something that was profitable or lucrative or at least doable, and now the game's changed and it's not quite so easy. Because I'm getting the gist now that art and making money from the whole art game has never been harder, but yeah, it's certainly a difficult game both to create good art and to then put it in a YouTube channel and market that channel, turn that into a thing that people actually want to come along and view and all that kind of stuff. Alex, I resonate with the artist struggle. As I myself am struggling. I'd say more than 50% because of poor decisions, lol, because I've sold everything I've ever created. Oh, you have sold everything you've ever created. Oh, well, that's good. If you have sold everything you've ever created. Yeah, I haven't done anything with my YouTube channel. Well, yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Get sort the art thing out first. When you feel like you're completely nailing that, then choose your platform of choice. Mostly on IG, so yeah, Instagram or TikTok. Yeah, it doesn't have to be YouTube. What's the Facebook art page that had 4K followers? Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about the Facebook art page. I mean, I might be wrong, but I feel like Facebook just is probably the worst social media platform, especially for like generating sales and things. Again, this is just my own personal take on it. But I used to have a Facebook page, which I don't know. I'd post on there. I'd get 5 or 6 likes, say per post, and a couple of comments. And now it's down to basically zero. I feel like everyone's just exited Facebook now, so far as that goes. Okay, what else we got? Let me just move this window over because I got like a chat window, and it's like above my head on a different screen. I'm just going to move that to my other screen. There you go. That's a little bit better. My problem is decreasing art market to 10% of the time I'm active on my art business. The rest has to be marketing, content creation, and administrative, all the other jazz. Yeah, I mean, that is the trouble, isn't it? I feel like, yeah, now just being an artist, just you almost just don't have any time for it. Like you might be lucky. I've spoke to so many other artists that talk about this point that you know they feel lucky if they've got 10% or 20% of their day to devote to the actual creation process. Because I think as soon as you want to go from that hobby space into that professional space, there is all that kind of admin and marketing side of things, and you know, it's not untypical for me to wake up. First thing I do, I've got some complaint on an email. Someone's art print hasn't turned up, and I now have to reassure them, and have to look into the courier and why that's not happened, and have to figure out whether I will be sending a replacement or how I'll be dealing with that. And then I'll have to pack up an art print, and then I'll have to maybe consider what my next video on YouTube is going to be, and maybe record that video. And before the day's done, I haven't even drawn a single line on a sheet of paper. You're addicted to artwork, but I guess if you want more of a following, I have to put most of my efforts into that. But yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, I think everyone's on their own sort of personal journey when it comes to artwork and what they're trying to do with themselves. I think you've got people that just love art and they just want to turn, or they just want to make that into like the hobby, and they can still compartmentalize that and a work life and have the work life balance or whatever. And that works for some people, but yeah, if you do want to end up turning it into something professional, then yeah, it's I don't think there's any way around the sort of admin and business side of things, especially not in this day and age. I think gone are the days where you could just be an artist and you could have, a patron or an agent or some big corporation that would basically give you work for life. Doesn't really work like that. You have to really be an entrepreneur, really, I think, to do the whole professional art thing. Yvonne D, yeah, cool. Good to see you. Yeah, Apple makes video editing easier. Yeah, I don't really use Apple products, so there you go. That's half of the internet can now hate me. I mostly just use InDesign, not InDesign, Premiere. InDesign for the layout stuff, Premiere for the video stuff, Photoshop for the art and photo editing stuff. All Adobe. No matter what you think about them, they still have some good products, but yeah, I kind of know how it works, but it's like PCs versus Apples. It's like if you know how it works, it doesn't really matter which one you use, as long as the end product, works. It's all good. And now throwing AI, getting better every month. Yeah, is it called Sono? Is it Sono 2 or Sora, or is it Sora 2? This new AI that everyone's talking about replaced VO3. Just the high quality videos. Yeah, I mean, just look at that stuff. It's crazy. Yeah, Facebook doesn't do much for creatives. I agree. I mean, it might have done, and it might still do. Like, I always think like you just have to try these things. But from my own personal perspective, I have tried most social medias, and I've found that so some were good. Tumblr used to be good. Facebook used to be good, but they're not. Even Google Plus used to be really good, and then they just closed it down. And that was like I had my most highest engagement with Google Plus. I had like 1,000 followers there. I just lost them all. Okay, Alex is off sorting live things out. Yeah, okay, we've caught up. So yeah, thanks for the comments, guys. Let's crack on.
To reach these people, you need a plan. So a direct way of connecting with them, building relationships, and helping them understand the value of what you offer. The truth is, many artists spend years chasing followers instead of getting crystal clear on who their real art buyers are and where to find them. But once you know who you're talking to and you start speaking to them and not just broadcasting to the void, everything starts to shift. Here's something that might help. Create a profile of your ideal collector. What kind of lifestyle do they have? What do they care about? Where do they spend their time or money? The more clearly you define them, the more naturally your work, messaging, and marketing will start to speak their language. And remember, your buyers don't need to be art experts. Some of the best collectors are simply normal people who want their home to reflect their personality, values, or taste. It's to help them see how your art fits into that story. Now let's talk.
Okay, so yeah, it's all about finding the right audience and then figuring that out. Again, I kind of feel like I mean, maybe this is too idealistic for me, but I feel like it should be a case that you create an awesome product and then the audience needs to basically find you, and it's not necessarily something you should kind of manufacture from the offset. But yeah, I guess the idea is to figure out who would like what you do, and I guess normally it's a lot of the time it's yourself, isn't it? Like the ideal buyer is yourself because you create the stuff that you think is good, otherwise you wouldn't create it. So you need to find more people like you. But then the trouble is, if you're a bit like me and you're a bit of a weirdo, how do you go about doing that? Because most people aren't oddballs, and I'm also very how should I put this, frugal. So I wouldn't be someone who would spend a lot of money on art, yet in order to make a career selling art you want people that hopefully are going to spend a lot of money on it. So it's a difficult one, and I found generally people have a much easier time of it if their art happens to resonate more with people age, say, 50 plus, or retiree age, people that generally have more disposable income. They have homes of their own, bigger homes, they've upgraded over the course of their lifetime, and perhaps into their 60s, 70s they're looking to sort of kit it out, have some nice things around them, and they can afford to spend whatever she said, was it 12,000 on a painting, on a big painting. Difficult when you're doing the whole anime fan art thing. There's not many people, certainly let's just say a comic convention, the typical demographic there, sort of 20 to 26, 27 year olds. So let's just say a 25-year-old average, would buy my artwork. And a lot of 25-year-olds, especially in the current economic climate, don't have money. So, oh well, I guess I'm screwed. But the whole pop culture scene and all that kind of thing. Okay, let's crack on with this.
Talk about one of the most overlooked opportunities, your local market. A lot of artists write off their local area with beliefs like, no one here buys art, or people can't afford high-end work, or this town isn't cultured enough. But I want you to challenge that way of thinking. Now, for example, I live in the north of England, and this is a place where many would assume lacks wealth, culture, serious art buyers compared to places in the south of England, such as the City of London. And yet, I buy art. I know interior designers here who are actively sourcing original work, and private collectors with beautiful lakefront houses looking for pieces to fill their many walls in their homes. Wealth exists everywhere. Art buyers exist everywhere. The question is, are you paying attention to what's already around you? I've seen artists make their first big sales by tapping into their own local network, connecting with nearby galleries, reaching out to interior designers, or even participating in open studios. Of course, not all opportunities locally are equally beneficial, but don't overlook what's right in front of you if you don't feel that it's fancy enough. Your local community can be the perfect.
I would just say about local community. So in my local area, we have an open studio system. I think it happens once a year. twice a year, where local artists basically sign up to a program where they advertise in a sort of mini book basically, and people that are interested in art and stuff can find the artist's address, go to their homes, check out their work, and it's a little way to sort of get yourself out there and stuff. And I like just looking at art stuff. I've sort of been around to some of these open studios before. Trouble is, even in the local area, I'll be honest, I talk to most artists and I don't think any of them are making bank, you know. They're kind of doing their little things, scraping a living from it. And it is quite difficult, I think, for a lot of them to really sort of succeed. But I think it really just depends on the type of artwork you're doing. Um, so So yeah, Philip's saying, I'm finding if your art is on something like a t-shirt or a hat, people seem to be more prone to buying that over a print, especially at conventions. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's another thing. Like if you're someone who does more contemporary fine art and you're kind of pitching it towards that art buyer market, you know, the more affluent, older, not necessarily older, but artsy kind of buyer, you know, it's a very different product than if you're selling artwork on a product like a t-shirt, a mug, a mouse mat, something like that. And sometimes you just, I think, like for me, I have to kind of admit, at least with what I've done up until this point, that the content of my artwork just isn't really going to work for the sort of thing that she's talking about in this video. It really feels like my whole approach is, or the content, the genre, the subject matter really just seems to be something that's considered disposable and cheap, and something that would typically only cater or mostly cater to, you know, that 20-something-year-old demographic that want, yeah, a product with a pretty picture on it basically. So I kind of might have to realize that, you know, having my own artist's open studio where, you know, potential hot buyers could come in and look, and most of the time they are like retirees and stuff that visit these places. They wouldn't really like my stuff unless they're looking for something small for their grandkids or something, that kind of thing. I have to realize that, yeah, I have to potentially just look at the kind of the side of the industry that caters for the subject matter that I'm kind of interested in.
Perfect place to build momentum is where your reputation can grow fast, where word of mouth still works, and often where your first few collectors are already waiting. You don't need to be everywhere, but you do need to start somewhere, and often your current local area is the best place to begin. Now let's talk about one of the most underrated resources, your personal network. I hear this.
So yeah, I would say local area. Again, I I don't. I'm not convinced that if you're doing something um, or different from more of a sort of mainstream painting, like if you're painting, for example, horses or pets or people, flowers, landscapes, you know, that kind of thing. I feel like, yeah, the local market could facilitate that. If you do kind of gothic horror, you know, skeletons decapitating other skeletons, I don't know, or, you know, something with that kind of gothic, heavy metal rock vibe, or if you do, yeah, like video game inspired anime fan art, if you do something relating to, I don't know, just maybe, you know, just something a little bit weird, like I was walking past this art gallery not too long ago, and this artist, was doing these big canvases of astronauts that were eating fast food. So it's kind of like this sort of modern art stuff, but they were really good paintings actually. Sort of like I had that kind of sci-fi plus, what would you call it? This sort of yeah, just modern day pop culture reference, sort of pop art reference as well with the junk food. And I can feel like that would work in certain locations, not my local town, but that's just the vibe that I'm getting. So XJS, yeah, nice to watch another stream from you. Good to see you as well. And who's this woman? So this is Martha May Ronson. I think she is a art marketing business lady who wants to basically give advice on how people like myself, artists, can make a living from their art. I'm on a journey to become a full-time professional, so I thought I'll watch her and some other artists out there give their 2 cents and see if there's anything that I can derive from it. And yeah, let's see what else she has to say.
This from a lot of artists. That £2,000 sale doesn't really count, it was just a friend. Or maybe it was a family member who purchased one of your works. But here's the thing, a sale is a sale. Just because someone knows you doesn't mean that they're not serious about your work. No one spends that kind of money just to be polite. So if a friend, a relative or acquaintance buys your work, it's because the work genuinely resonated with them, not because they're pitying you in some way. It's actually something to be proud of and not dismissed. Your network is a real market. It's a warm audience. People who already trust you are far more likely to support what you do. Especially early on, your personal network is one of the most valuable assets that you have as an artist, so don't doubt.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Because yeah, obviously, if someone is spending £2,000, $2,500 on a painting, yeah, it's not a sale, is it? And there's something definitely to be said about kind of being a person first and an artist second. It's not the first time I'm sure most people have heard the advice that people don't buy your art because the artwork is good. They buy it because of you as a human being, which I think is one of these things where, you know, even me doing this stream, even having a YouTube channel, this kind of stuff, to some degree, the goal is to show the world that I'm a human being, and it's kind of like anyone that does that, you're basically communicating, look, I'm a human being, you know, come for my insights, thoughts, you know, perspective on the world, and you know, if you like kind of some of the stuff that I'm saying, at least, then perhaps you would also be interested in, you know, insert X product. And that's how YouTubers do their thing, isn't it? You know, they build a channel, they build a following, and then they try and sell something off the back of that. And I think that's a lot easier to do than to have the product and then to basically go around with the begging bowl saying, oh, would you buy it? Would you buy it? Because they don't know you, they don't trust you, they don't follow you, they don't know anything about you, they have no connection with you as a person. And sometimes it takes for you to be in front of that audience and to basically make you aware that you actually have artwork to sell. I'm sure so many people have wondered about this idea of, you know, should I buy a picture to put in my, you know, downstairs bathroom, you know, on the wall, or should I just leave that space blank or something? And you know, a lot of people just go about their day, they don't do anything with it, or maybe they go to a local store, you know, an IKEA or something, and think, oh yeah, well, IKEA sell, you know, generic prints of, you know, New York taxis with a, you know, some skyscrapers in the background. That will do. I'll have that. It's not very personal, but perhaps if you could kind of connect with some sort of audience, whether it's family, friends, or people through social media, and then, you know, not advise, but communicate the value of having something that's a little bit more unique to their tastes. And hopefully, you know, if they sort of follow you, they will know what your tastes are and what the sort of things you put out there. Then maybe people will be like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, yeah, why not? Why not have, you know, this sort of character art or whatever it is in front of me instead of just a generic picture on the wall. So yeah, I think knowing people is probably one of the most important things when it comes to art out of everything. I used to work as a tattoo artist. I was doing that part time for about 11 years or something, and nearly I was going to say nearly all, but yeah, all of my work, every single tattoo that I did, and I did hundreds, all came from word of mouth. I didn't do any advertising. It was all about, you know, it was being local and then connecting with other people, and then they would recommend me, and just being a decent guy and doing a good job. People would say, "Oh, I want to get a tattoo. Where can I go?" And my customers would then say, "Oh, I know a guy. He did mine. He's okay. This is what he did." And as long as you're not an arsehole to these people, then you can get a lot of recommendations and a lot of work through word of mouth. So I think maybe the most important thing when selling certainly a more personal, unique product with art, that is art, sorry, is, yeah, it's all about the personal branding, or being a human being, or connecting with other humans. So
Downplay it. Reach out, send that email, share what you're working on, invite people to your exhibitions, let them know that you're open for commissions. You never know who they know or what opportunities could come from a single conversation. One of the artists inside of the Artists Accelerator recently ran her first launch. Even after it ended, a friend reached out to her wanting to commission a piece he'd missed out on during the launch. And on top of that, someone else, the mother of her little boy's friend, expressed interest in buying one of her highest priced paintings in her entire collection. And it's not just about sales. Your network can also introduce you to curators, recommend you for projects, help you find opportunities, and encourage you when things feel tough. So never underestimate the power of people who you already know and who believe in you. And finally, you've heard it before, but it's definitely worth repeating, start an email list. While you don't need a massive following to start bringing in sales and making money from your art, even a small engaged audience can make such a huge difference. It doesn't matter if you only have 10 people on your list, that's 10 people more than zero. Because here's the thing, email converts so much better than social media. It's more personal, more direct, and far more likely to lead to real conversations and real sales. So when someone...
I kind of disagree so far as video content. I think video content is better than email. like what I'm saying is, she's the expert and I'm not. So take anything I say with a pinch of salt. But I kind of feel as though the good thing with email and email lists is the fact that you can go straight to someone's inbox. If I build up 100,000 subscribers, if I was that lucky, on YouTube or any social media platform, I'm still beholden to how many of those subscribers will actually see my content, because YouTube or Instagram or whatever, it doesn't show all of your content to all of your subscribers. I mean, I've got over 30,000 Instagram followers, but only, I don't know, less than 1% of those ever engage with my posts. And I'm sure it's just because social media has basically said, you know, basically it's populating their feeds with things that it thinks that they'll want, rather than things that they've subscribed to. So that's the good thing with the email lists, where you can actually target people directly. But I would imagine that actually it wouldn't be a bad idea to use the email list to then point them to a video. I don't know why, I've just kind of got it into my head more recently that video really is the way forward. I think you can just connect with someone so much better than through words alone. And obviously you can show your work in videos and things like that. But yeah, the tough bit with the emails is just trying to get people to sign up. And I think that in of itself, you probably need like a 2-hour long video explaining how to convert anyone, whether they're friends, family, or social media people, or anyone, to join an email list. Because I feel like no one really wants to join email lists. Maybe if it's some website that they're really interested in from the outset. It's some, they're already a fan of this particular product or service, and they want to know more about it or really know exactly what to share. So at the minute, I'm just sharing blog posts, and a lot of it is just talking about what I'm actually thinking, what I'm doing, just some insights, thoughts, all related to art and design and illustration, that kind of thing. I don't go too far off topic. But yeah, at the bottom, I normally have like a little call to action, like, oh, by the way, here's a product, you can buy it if you want. I'm not convinced of its effectiveness yet, but then again, like I say, I only have like 20 people on it. And, you really, like she says, you need those 10 hardcore buyers, really, if you want to succeed with this. So yeah, Philip, I've said that for ages. People don't buy the art; they buy the artist. Yeah, I think that we're all in agreement with that. Especially these days, because you have AI. Anyone can become a prompter. They can go on, Leonardo AI, DALL-E, Midjourney, create a portfolio of 20 high caliber images that all look good, consistent. Anyone could effectively be what used to be considered an artist, just having a visual portfolio, and anyone could then put stuff like that out for sale. And all we've really got as artists now is the ability to say, oh, wait, we're human beings. Do you really want to live in a world governed by algorithms, AIs, and robots, or do you want to try and connect with other real, flawed, messed up human beings like yourself? Because if you do, good, because that's all I've got. I can't show you the best pictures, the prettiest, most beautiful artwork. I can just show you what I'm doing, and I can show you that I'm a real person. And if you want to live in a world with real people, if that matters to you, which it fundamentally does to all humans, whether they want to believe it or not, I think you kind of we need each other. If you want to support me as a human being, then this is what I'm doing. And so yeah, being real, being out there, is pretty important. Tattoo industry has a ton of gatekeepers. Oh, tell me about it. Just a quickie on that. So I wanted to become a tattoo artist about 15 years ago, and I went around to probably about 50 tattoo shops in the local area. The local towns. I went so far as about London, which is about an hour and a half drive away from me. And I was just trying to get anywhere. I thought rather than just cold emailing or cold calling, I would literally turn up at shops, try and show my portfolio, get an interest. And it was a real mixed bag. You got people delighted that I was there. They were loving what I was doing. They wanted to help me, and I think they were quite happy for me to be there. Other people not so much, and there was a lot of gatekeeping, and there was, because it's very the trouble with tattooing is it's very difficult to teach yourself, because if you haven't tattooed before, you're not going to be very good at it. And where are you going to find people to practice on? If you don't have a tattoo shop, especially if you're like me, like I didn't really have many friends, if any, that were tattooed or wanted tattoos. So it's like, well, where am I going to get that from unless I'm working in a tattoo shop where there are people that want tattoos constantly coming into my environment? So the trouble with the tattoo industry is it then promotes a lot of artists that have their own shops to basically exploit wannabe apprentices. So they'll often get apprentices in, they won't pay them, they'll get them to, scrub the toilet, set up for them, promise that eventually they'll teach them to tattoo, but they could be doing their non-paid internship for like 2 years until they finally get told that they're allowed to have a tattoo machine in their hand. And I think a lot of tattoo artists will use the excuse of like, oh no, no, you need to practice more. You're not good enough. You need to get really good with your drawing, and then maybe I'll let you loose on someone's skin with a tattoo machine. I feel like it's just a way of delaying the fact that it's basically getting free labor out of people. Um, and yeah, it's just why not get people to clean your toilets for you. And there's no shortage of people that want to be tattoo artists because, again, the people that are really good at tattooing, you can make sort of £400-500, $600-700 or more per day. It's not a bad job. Yeah, so most of my art sales were direct messaging, text, and email. Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, it's good to know that you can, if you're just willing to ask, then you can actually get. There's the whole saying, if you don't ask, you don't get. So it's good to know that there's some truth there. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, I feel a bit too embarrassed to ask my friends if they'll support me or, that kind of thing. And, perhaps you shouldn't be. Perhaps you should be willing to just be a bit forthright in asking people around you if they'd be interested in supporting you, and not be scared if they say no. Because I think that feeling of rejection is probably what puts a lot of people off from even asking to begin with. I've been stuck on 650. Am I on IG? Oh, okay. So 650 followers on Instagram. Partly my fault, but I still sell everything I make. I imagine if I had thousands, I would be able to quit my day job. Well, yeah. I mean, if you're selling everything you make, I think you need to put your prices up, and then. But yeah, that's good going. I think you're doing fine. And yeah, it's good to know that there's that potential to you think, I reckon I could actually quit my day job here. Just knowing that, it kind of gives you a bit of inspiration, I think. XJS. I usually have all my commission slots filled with Reddit and Discord clients. Oh, that's interesting. Reddit and Discord. I've not even looked into that. I mean, I do see people on some of the subreddits that I follow, like if it's a board game or a video game, uh, subreddit. People will say, I'm an artist, I'm a designer. Do you want to commission me? But I've never really gone down the route of trying to promote myself there. So it's interesting to know that there are people that can use that to sell their work. I don't build a social media following at all. Spend that time building a portfolio. That's good. Sounds like you're doing the right thing. Because that's the thing. I think it can just take years full time to actually build a following, and if and for the purpose of eventually selling your artwork. But if you can just go straight to the selling your artwork part, you don't necessarily need the following. Got to give them something for free. I think that was probably in response to email sign-ups. Yeah, totally agree. Don't ever look at email listings. I don't ever look at email listings. I don't think it's a good way to get clients. YouTube is great to show time lapses that may get the interest of clients. Doesn't have to get many views for that. Yeah. Do you still think time lapses are worth putting up on YouTube these days? I feel like it's so saturated now with artists either posting, their artwork or their process. But I mean, there's probably still like a lot of people that are constantly looking for new artwork and new artists to follow. So, K-pop Demon Hunter, lover. Hi, hello to you. Um, yep, Alex. Closer I got to being involved in making arts for two people that had it tattooed on themselves. Okay, so you've made artwork which was later tattooed. That's interesting. It's funny how many artists out there create tattoos but don't become or know how to tattoo themselves. I was even thinking one day to telemarket my art services to SEOs on LinkedIn. Lol. Yeah, I like your thinking. I like the thinking outside the box. hey there, are your office walls boring? Like, I'm not sure if you just direct messaged SEOs. I mean, I don't know. Go for it. Try it. I would imagine it would just be difficult. I think a lot of people in sort of senior positions within companies are just so busy that it wouldn't normally be them in charge of the decor and the furnishings of their offices necessarily. It might be, I don't know. It's trying to find someone within that corporation that is in charge or does have an affinity with art and stuff. But yeah, I think thinking outside the box like that, people aren't saying that. What's her name? Martha. Martha isn't saying that, but maybe that's a good idea of something worth trying. And speaking of Martha, I think I'll get back to what she's saying.
Expresses interest in your work, ask them for their email and get their permission to stay in touch. Start an artist newsletter and share your story, your process and details about your new works. That's how you build genuine connection and trust. It's not just about the size of your list, it's about the quality of your relationships and the consistency with which you show up. To make a start on building your list, create a very simple form on your website. Share it on social media, mention it to people in person. You can even add the link to your business card.
I think it's funny how this whole video is like how to make money from your art without an audience, and then it's like, right, build a social media list.
And then start nurturing those connections today, because those first 10 subscribers will then turn into 50 and then 100 and then 300. And then before you know it, you have a real list of real people who genuinely want to hear from you and buy from you. Let me leave this with you. You do not need a big audience to make money from your art. We've worked with artists inside.
The thing is, why would your email lists go from 10 to 100 to 300? Like, I know it sounds good to say that, but why would it? Like, if you have no audience, how could you multiply the amount of subscribers to your email list? I mean, I'm being very unreasonable and picking this apart, and I really appreciate that someone's gone out of their way to get onto YouTube and post some advice, which hopefully will help some people. And I hope that Martha May Ronson continues to have lots of success on YouTube. But like I say, I just want to challenge what people are saying, and I just want to say that how do you do that? How do you do that then? I ask as well because I have two email lists on my website. Like I was saying before, I've got one email list for my art. I've got another one for this ball game that I was working on, and I'm not offering anything in order to join. Actually, no, I'm offering a discount on art print sales if people join the art side of things, the art list. But yeah, how do you get 100 people? Like, I mean, you could try and build up real life social connections and get them on board to join the email list. But when you're talking about 300 email list signups, you're gonna surely have to kind of find those via promoting a website and then building up your search engine optimization or advertising in order to get them to that email list, or through social media. It's going to have to be kind of an organic sort of funnel that you're finding people from a platform and then funneling them into the email list sign up, or paying with advertising. But she hasn't mentioned advertising yet, which is interesting.
Of the Artist Accelerator who have pre-existing audiences and join the program because they were struggling to make sales, and that's because followers are not the same as buyers. We've also seen artists who have no social media following whatsoever or no email list making their first sale inside of the program within weeks of joining, because once they had a strategy, everything changed. They knew how to position their work, where to show up and what to say. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's this. Sales don't come from being well known. They come from being well positioned. It's not about waiting to be discovered. It's about putting yourself in the right rooms, in front of the right people, and with the right messaging. And that's exactly what we teach inside of the Artist Accelerator. From pricing to positioning to launching your collections, we help you to build a real business around your art, with or without a big audience. So if you're ready to start waiting for followers and start building real income from your work, click the link in the description below to apply to work with me inside of the program. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, let me know by liking it, commenting down below, and subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you in my next video.
There we go. One down. Only took me about an hour to get through that one video. Yeah. So even though it's saturated, I'm still surprised at how many people thank me for a bit of advice on one of my videos. It's been covered by another artist so many times before. Yeah, it is an interesting thing, isn't it? That like I don't think I necessarily say that much that is necessarily original or new, and I know that I have a lot of issues with sort of my ability to be charismatic and communicate properly and articulate myself, and yet for some reason there's a few people out there that still appreciate the things I put out there. So doesn't mean that hope is lost, I guess. So yeah, I mean, this was very much a sales pitch for the Artists Accelerator, which is one of those sort of businessy terms for give me money and I will tell you how to be better. Now I don't know if a course is any good or not. It might be. The Artist Accelerator might accelerate our progress, and she might. I mean, this video might have been specifically quite vague, and within that program, all the answers will become clear. But yeah, I guess it's just one of these things where it offered a few very general, common sense uh, kind of insights about trying to find the audience and not try and just build up followers for followers' sake. But yeah, she did all right out of it. For 37,000 views, which was basically a sales pitch for a course she's selling. So people clicked it and probably got a lot out of it.
Hello, fellow artists. Welcome to IC Arts. I am Irina, children's book illustrator, and I decided to...
Okay, we have a children's book illustrator now. Top 10 pricing mistakes freelance illustrators make. So I'm going to see what I think of this one. I'm going to put the subs back on, but I appreciate that my face is blocking some of them, so it's a bit redundant, really. So I just move my big head. Maybe I'll move it over to this side.
To make a video about pricing your work, because when I just started out, it definitely felt like I was blindfolded, and very often in the beginning I did give the wrong price. Now, it's very important for us not to accidentally undercharge and overpromise and perhaps even in the end work for pennies. But before I even begin listing the mistakes, I want to say that to me, pricing, it's not just numbers. It is the ability of all of us to understand our value, our time, our skills. I get it. When you're a beginner, you might be surprised that somebody is even ready to pay for your work. Why would somebody do this? I'm just drawing. I love it. I spend my time beautifully. Yes, but with practice, you realize that maybe you will be working on a lot more complicated projects and so on and so forth. You will understand that you do have the skills, you do have the professionalism in you. It's there, so do not sabotage yourself. And it's important to know that. And when you give the quote, you have to be really confident. The mistake number one would be that very often beginners charge only for the time drawing, based on the thought, how long is it going to take me to draw this page? But the project is a little bit more. It's your research, it's thumbnailing, it's the revisions, definitely revisions, and client communications, be so calls, emails, or text. And it's the final file preparation, where maybe it's formatting, you're adding the text, some design, and then you have to make sure that the file would be printed beautifully. All that needs to be included in the price, because all of that takes time. Your time.
Yeah, so pricing, I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because my thought with when you price some artwork is that you can offer it for whatever you like, but if you want to sell it, really the only way to do it is to sell it based on other things around it. So going back to this idea of me exhibiting at comic book conventions, if I want to sell an A3 sized print, so we're talking, yeah, so big, I can only sell that between the sort of price range at a comic book convention of probably between like £8, so about $10, and £25, £30, so about 30 to 35, $40. That's all I could ever sell an art print for. It doesn't matter if it's limited edition, if it's printed on sort of special glossy metallic paper or something. That just is the price, because, and I know that that's the price because I've looked at what other people are selling their artwork for, and that is the going rate. And you can experiment from that point. You know, you could try selling you could try selling a print for, you know, £500 or $700 or whatever you want, but I don't think people are going to buy it. I think generally you just have to look at the going market rate, and then you have to work out after that whether you think that you making the artwork to begin with is even worth it. Now, I've said before that if I can sell, say, 100 prints at £10 a go, then I know that I'm going to make £1,000. If that artwork takes me 30 hours, you know, let's say 35 hours a week, 40 hours, say, then it's like, okay, well, there you go. I know that I'm going to make £1,000 a week. But I think that's more what you should do when it comes to pricing. And like she says, you don't want to just factor in the time. I think that's not a bad idea. Idea to help kind of start you off. You know, if you are freelancing and producing a commission, and you know that commission is going to take you 30 hours, it is just a no-brainer to not then charge, you know, pounds or whatever for your artwork, because you're just not going to make the time back. It's just not going to be economically viable. So there is something to be said for factoring in time as part of the equation, but like she says, there's other things to think about as well. Okay, Canadian dollars half a pound. Well, that's good to know. Okay, well, that's good that you know that as well. I normally remember a dollar because I sell a lot to Americans, and I know that right now a dollar is worth about 78 pence or 80 pence, so 80% of £1. Yeah, and for euros, I think we're on about 85 euro cents to £1. Anyway, yeah, being British, I have to give my prices in pounds most of the time, but I appreciate most YouTubers are American, so.
Time. Obviously, only with practice you will be able to tell how long each stage, even approximately, is taking you. But even in the beginning, very beginning, before even working with the clients, you could already start timing yourself and maybe even come up with a concept project for your Behance profile, of course, and think, how long is it taking you to work this through? Now,
Not a
number
bad idea.
two, very often you forget about charging for rights and licensing. To be honest, according to my experience, this is the one that is almost always a surprise for the client. They don't understand why they have to pay extra, but I will give you an example. Say the client has ordered from you the character design. This character would be used, say, in the bakery, right? It's like a logo. It might be used on the menu, on the wall, and so on and so forth. But then the client also tells you that they want to use this character to do merchandise or maybe even make a cartoon with it. Now that would be, first of all, additional charge and a completely different story, because you can't just illustrate the character. Someone will pay you, say, $400, hypothetically again, and that's it. And then this character is going to be on YouTube, it's going to be on merchandise, so it's different, very different. So you
Yeah, I mean, pricing. I'll be honest. I think I'm so far in with the whole art selling thing that there might not be that much I'm learning. But it sounds like good advice here, because obviously when you're doing a private commission, you've got your auntie or your uncle that wants, I don't know, some little portrait to give to their son or daughter, your cousin, not niece or nephew. Could be a niece or nephew, could be your cousin. Um, it's going to be a flat fee, and you're probably going to do mates rates. You're probably going to do a friends and family discount, and let's just say you offer £100. That is just going to be what it is. If you're doing commercial work for bigger projects, then you do what she's talking about, where you start talking about licensing and things like that. Normally you can tell by the request coming in your email inbox about the type of work that you're going to want to do. People are normally quite upfront. They'll say, I want to do one that I had was, we're doing a new alcoholic beverage and we want some art bottle of the beverage, and we want this to be sold in, bars and clubs and pubs and restaurants and things like that. So I immediately knew, right, okay, so you're going to want full exclusive rights to use this artwork, both for your product and for advertising purposes. I didn't even need to really ask to what extent they needed the artwork, although that's good to know. So even off the bat, like, I knew that, right, okay, this is going to be a higher paying gig than if, Auntie Jane and Uncle Simon want an anime character portrait of their their son or daughter, aka my cousin. So yeah, that's immediately something worth thinking about with pricing.
Have to know the usage, how the client is going to use what he or she or they are buying from you, and you can educate your client. I think it's actually very essential for us to explain everything to the client, from the license, of course, to every stage that the project takes us. It is beneficial because the client understands, wow, there's so many things actually involved in the project, and now I understand what I am paying for. You can explain that, yes, you could definitely purchase this character. You will put in the contract, guys, that this use is going to be for the character design. And then for everything else in the future, you might explain to the client that they will need to reach out back to you and purchase additional license. Because sometimes the client might say, I want full copyright transfer. The price will be significantly different. Number 3, your pricing per illustration.
Okay, so I think she's packed a lot into that first or second point about the whole thing about licensing rights, copyright, usage. If you're a beginner and you've never really heard about stuff like that, I think that in of itself needs like a 20-30 minute video. It's pretty complicated. And she mentioned the contract. I imagine there's a lot of people right now scratching their heads thinking, contract? How do I do that? Like, do I write a contract, or does the client write a contract? I mean, in my experience, it's normally been up to me to present a client a contract. Well, I don't know, it depends. It's about 50-50 when I've done freelance commission projects for companies. Normally the contract they'll sign me is shit and I have to revise half of it. Otherwise I won't do it, because typically they're trying to cover themselves, so they concentrate more on making sure their arse is covered, and that they have full exclusive rights and can use your artwork in any way they want. And if they want to put crazy shit all over it and dicks coming out of people's heads, then you're just like, oh, okay, I've signed the contract. I guess you have to just turn my artwork into something gross and disgusting, and that's what I'll be known for. That's all. But yeah, when I write a contract for myself, I'm very careful, particularly with the moral rights. So normally I'm going off on a tangent here, but why not? So yeah, when you do get a commission client from a business company, you'll get a contract. And normally moral rights is a type of rights where you basically say, you can use my art for what you want, but morally you're not allowed to alter it. You're not allowed to turn it into something that I don't, personally agree with. And I've never had anyone say that they want to have the moral rights for that. But yeah, it's a complicated thing. I wonder these days what people do so far as finding contracts for artwork and stuff, and because most of the time, like when I is just an agreement, that's just done, that's just laid out in its own distinctive document. But you can make agreements over email, which I think is actually a good idea, to negotiate terms and things over email rather than phone. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the time I just say my terms over email, and then they'll say what they want, and then most of the time that's been okay. There's always been the understanding of what the artwork would be used for, and I might say, "Oh, just letting you know, this is what we're agreeing, and if you wanted anything more than what we're agreeing, then yeah, we'll have to discuss it. And if you want it put into a formal contract or document, we'll have to do that, and I can send you that." I've got templates of previous contracts I've done, so it's quite easy for me to just adapt those into something new. But yeah, I think for most, at least small scale projects, the ones that I tend to work on, because I'm not in those upper echelons, the top few percenters that get the big, big contracts with the likes of, Disney or Microsoft or Apple or Amazon or whatever it is. The sort of the general, like small publisher looking to publish 10,000 or 50,000 copies of a book, I'll be working on that book. Yeah, there's not much in the way of contract. There might be a separate contract, but there equally might not be, and you'll just arrange all of that via email and stuff. So says hello to you too. Philip's talking about Canadian. So Philip is Canadian, so I always have to calculate prices for US or UK. I love the UK though. I love to live there and work there for a while. Yeah, well, it depends whereabouts you live in the UK. Like with every country, there's good parts and bad parts. If you ever want any advice on good parts to stay, let me know. Let's crack on.
Not considering a book as the whole thing. So this is about people who are illustrating books. A book, it's not just 32 pages, you charge per page, it's going to be very, very low number. The book is a cohesive project. And when I give a quote to the client, every single time the client emails me, hey, how much is this going to be? I always explain that these are going to be the stages, the sketching, the character design. There are different types of illustrations, although I do not charge separately from vignette to a full spread. I will be making another video where I would be talking about pricing models, so you could understand better actually how to price a certain type of work and which one would work better for you. Now you have to also explain that if you are do-it-all illustrator, say you will also put the text in the book, design everything, and prep the file so after it sends to the printers, it's going to be printed well. All that takes so much time so that you absolutely cannot just charge per page. So there has to be.
That's a good point just to say that when you're communicating to a client, you want to say exactly what's involved. I think most people, when they want artwork, they just want the end result, and they have no real concept of what is involved with that and how long it does take. Certainly, like she mentions, like a lot of people mention, like prepping the file at the end. Like you can send an image over email and say, "Do you like this?" They say, "Yep, I like it. I'll take it." And you say, "Great, all right, send me the final payment, and I'll send you the high res version, and I'll send you it, with a transparent background in case you want to use it as a logo, or I'll send the original Photoshop version, and I'll resize it so that it's good for email or good for web or good for high res print." And that whole process of formatting the final artwork. Like I did a logo recently. The logo took about 4 hours to design, and then prepping the final logo, like the final files, took about an hour and a half. And it was just a small little job that I did, and it's crazy just to think that a large chunk of the entire process of doing that little small commission was just prepping the files. I think it's good to break it down and make it very clear about what's involved, and if people don't know already. And it can sound like you're trying to just justify it and throwing a lot of stuff at people, but I think it's worth just making it clear that it's not just a case of clicking a few buttons at a computer or sitting down at a sheet of paper and an hour later a masterpiece has emerged, and it's that simple. So
be the total project fee, and then for the client's convenience you could of course break it up into different stages. Say the covers is one price, the formatting is another price, the preparation for print is a different price. If you want this book in a different language, that's additional. And of course the next obvious thing to say here is that when you are pricing your work, you forget about reviews.
So yeah, Yvonne says, what about writing your own comics/manga, making them popular, then people want the art? Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea. I often think it's funny how there's a couple of big Japanese manga artists who did that. They made big well-known comics, Demon Slayer, Dragon Ball Z, I don't know what's popular, One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen. Yeah. And you just think, if they wanted to, like, now that they're quite popular and known for what they do, guys, if they went to a comic convention and they were just doing quick sketches, people would pay like £100, or what would that be, 200 Canadian dollars. Yeah, people would pay a lot of money just for a quick 5-minute sketch by a famous author of a comic or something. So it's not a bad idea. Like, I can't see how you're not just set for life once you've created one big, you've established one big IP. It's just, you think of someone like J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter author. She's even if she wasn't a multi-millionaire, if she ever came across, if she ever came upon hard times and she needed to make some money in a hurry, then she could just go to a writers' convention and just sign copies of her old books, sell them for £50 a go, and yeah, that would be it. She would be making bank for the rest of her life. So it's not a bad idea. The trouble is having the one product that is that successful. Because it seems easy when there's there's so many, like there's just so many. When you think of like popular comics or TV shows or books, there's just so many. You think, well, surely I can be the one to make the popular thing. But I think for every best-selling whatever it is that becomes popular enough for you to then just make a career off the back of just that whole IP, there's going to be, I don't know, maybe 99 people that tried to make it that didn't make it. That's not to say don't give it a go, but it's just being realistic. But for me personally, because I'm such a slow artist and it takes me so long to create artwork, I realised that even though I would like to do sequential art, do stories, narratives, I wouldn't be quick enough to be able to do it, basically. So that's why I haven't done it up until this point. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on that. So Philip, I've only done a few small commissions, but it seems no matter how much I cover in pricing, there's always something you never thought about, usually comes about in post corrections. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's complicated, isn't it? Mark Riley made quite a name for himself as an American manga artist. Yeah, Mark Riley. He the one that did the How to Draw Manga books. Because yeah, I know, being someone else who's made How to Draw Manga books, if he's the same Mark Riley, then yeah, I know of Mark. Yvonne, I get stuck on that too. But what about the competition? The time will pass away. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it's one of these things. There's only so much time in the day, isn't there? It's like we have to decide what's the best use of our time. And the thing is, from a financial point of view as well, I know so many small independent comic creators, manga creators. Like I say, I go to these comic conventions. There's 350 artists typically at the big London one that I go to every year, and I would say, yeah, a good 100 of them are selling like a short story, a comic, and that's just the ones going to that particular event in London. That's not to mention there's big comic conventions in like France and Germany and the USA, and there's just so many people trying to do their little thing. And from my observations, certainly in those environments at least, selling a story is very difficult because there's just so many people that want to put their cool little story out there, and they are probably all really cool little stories. But they're just very difficult to get people on board because when you're trying to just sell a story, when you're trying to pitch it, there's a lot of extra marketing you need to do in order to get people on board with it. And whereas I think if you're just focusing on standalone artwork, it's easy to sell. You just say, here it is. Do you like it? Yes or no. Obviously, more backstory and personal connection with customers helps, but you don't have that whole needing to explain what the whole thing is about, and then the sort of risk of like, will I like this? Will I not? Must be really difficult as well, I think, for like musicians or to make money on the internet now, because to get people to commit to like a 3 or 4 minute long song, people don't have 10 seconds to spare these days. So yeah, I wonder how they get on with things. Okay, so yeah, he's the one. So yeah, Mark Riley. It took him ages though. Well, I mean, I think one of his first how to draw manga books came out in the early 2000s, so it's probably about 25 years ago. And I'm not sure what he was doing up until that point. I've never actually read his books, but I know now he basically slaps his name on the cover, probably writes the intro. It'd probably be like a new how to draw manga. I don't know, how to draw manga horses or how to draw manga football players or something. And then he'll get other artists from like China or Korea or India or wherever to basically populate the contents of his books. I think that's the way that he's gone now. So he's basically, well, I think a lot of people are a little bit critical of him. I mean, I think people are critical of me. I mean, like I say, I've done the whole how to draw book thing, and I was doing those how to draw books. Certainly, the first few back in the day when I didn't myself even really know how to draw. Yeah, I'm trying to teach kids how they themselves can do it. But I always think there's something to be learned, no matter what your level. But yeah, I think the only other thing I know about this Mark is like he had a bad he gained a bit of a reputation for having a bad attitude towards fans, that especially ones that would call him out on things. And yeah, he did. I mean, I've never met the guy, but apparently a lot of people had problems with him personally as a person, which at the end of the day, you get to get away with being like that if you're like a household established name, in a sort of art tutorial guidebook space. If you're like the big name, he's probably the biggest name in the how to draw anime manga thing. He's probably sold, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he sold 10 to 20 million copies of his books. Because yeah, I don't think people, normie type people don't really appreciate just how big anime and manga is, especially for kids wanting to learn how to draw. They'd rather go into that, I think, than just learn how to draw landscapes, sort of generic kind of landscapes or still life or something like that. So yeah, my kid remembers your drawing book. One of her friends owned it. That's interesting. I wonder which one it was. Because my first ever how to draw book was, I think that came out in 2003. So back then I was in my early 20s when I was working on that. Believe it or not, I'm in my early 40s now. And yeah, I think that if you're sort of 10 years old, and as long as you don't set the bar too high, people can look at even my old artwork, my old art book, and think, yeah, you know what, I think I can reach that level. I think if I was producing stuff like you see, like the Netflix series Arcane, League of Legends, that style of artwork, the high end game concept art, that's produced by those top 1%ers. I think a lot of kids would be discouraged and think they would just see what they're doing, see the gulf, the gap between themselves and the artwork that they would hopefully want to go on to produce, and they would think this is impossible. I don't want to do it. So anyway, that's my excuse for having lower quality art in a how to draw book. I think it hopefully gives kids a little bit more incentive to improve, knowing that they're not too far away from that kind of standard. Yeah, so Philip says, I didn't know that about Mark. I'm not surprised though. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know too much about the guy, but yeah, he did seem to ruin his reputation online by being a bit of an arsehole. That's all I really know about him. But I don't know. Maybe some of his stuff's good. Only the sales would say that he must have something going on. Otherwise, he wouldn't be selling so many copies of his books.
Revisions. So revisions always happen. Revisions, as I see them, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because very often the client gives an idea and I love it. And I see that by doing that revision, I actually improve my work, because the client very often has, I can't say a better understanding of the project, but they have their own vision, which helps to bring the project home sometimes, because it's a dialogue. Working on a project you work for your client, it is a dialogue. So don't be afraid of revisions. I always put in my contract that, say, if it's a book, there are 2 revisions per page for sketching stage, and coloring are included. Same with the cover. But everything additional would be charged per hour, and make sure you put that in the contract. Of course, there would be pages where there will be no revisions, and there would be pages where there will be much more than 2. So you have to understand what's happening. If you see that there is way too many edits already, or perhaps the project is done, that happens very often with books, and the client says, I want to change the font of the book or the font size. Now that would be additionally, and that would be charged per hour. The next one would be that we forget to charge.
So yeah, revisions. I mean, what can I say about revisions? I think for me personally, what I normally say when I get a request to create art is that I will do minor revisions. So if it's like, I don't know, change the hair color, or can you, I don't know, make the eyes a little bit smaller, or change the character's tie, or I don't know, just something very minor. I don't normally charge for that. And I'll normally give a few examples when I'm sort of responding back to an email about what I charge for revisions. But anything bigger, like change the pose, change the character, make them different, then I normally charge the same rate. So if it was a character and someone said, I'll pay you £300 for that, I would say, okay, well, if you want any changes at the sketch stage, that's going to be £100 every time you want a change done. If you want it at the coloured stage, the fully rendered, finished article, if you're like, actually, I don't like this anymore, change it to something completely different, then that's like that's basically effectively like a second character. So there's going to be another whole £300 for that. So that's kind of the way that I do it. But again, like most of the time for me, it's just it's laying this all out in an email. I don't have a separate contract per se for 70% of the commissions that I've at least taken on in the last 5 years. But everyone's different, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing just to put it all into a separate document.
For file preparation. especially in the books. Imagine how long it takes you to illustrate every single page, but now imagine how long it will take you to format every single page in the book and the edits that come with it as well. My recommendation, if you want to be seriously in the book illustration business, is to learn InDesign, because this program, it's meant for this, right? That's the purpose of it, to edit fast, to change everything fast. If you're just a beginner, probably say, for me, what I used was Procreate and Photoshop. It's doable, absolutely, but it takes so much more time and absolutely unnecessary, right? The next one, additional to the formatting, when I talk about the formatting, I mainly mean applying text, make sure everything is aligned, this and that, final design twitches and so on. But when we talk about file preparation for print, that could be a little different story. I illustrate my work in RGB and then I convert them to the CMYK, or depending on any ICC profile that the printers require. But that also takes additional time, because you need to see, and that would still take time even if you right away illustrate in CMYK mode. But just bottom line here is that that's also extra. That's extra time. Another mistake that is probably not directly connected to the mistakes in pricing, but is that you do not research the industry standards. There is a guide which everyone recommends when people talk about pricing your work. It's a very nice guide. I love it. I have it, not the latest edition, but I also found that if you're illustrating children's books, there's not a lot of information there for me that I could personally use. I found that if you're a designer, it has a lot more information for that field.
Yeah, I will quickly just say the book she's referencing, I think it's the Graphic Artists Guild book. I used to have it years ago, and that was like my Bible for figuring out how to become a professional back in the sort of early 2000s. And I don't know if I've still got my old copy of it, but I remember reading it. And back in the day, back in the early 2000s, comics were a big deal, and I remember them saying like the rough, because they gave a lot of examples of the sort of prices you could expect to charge for certain clients, and I remember them saying like, oh, if you're penciling comics, for an example, like Batman or something like that, expect to charge sort of £300 to £400 per page, and then I don't know, £250 to £300 for inking. No way would you get anything near that now. It's kind of funny, like how outdated that kind of thing is. Again, I mean, AI, would you even get anything? Uh, it can all just be done AI. Maybe not Batman, Spider-Man, stuff like that, or popular manga or whatever. But I remember thinking a lot of those prices were quite out of touch, and I then did a bit of my own research back in the time, and spoke with actual editors that worked for. I spoke with some people that worked at Dark Horse, Marvel. There's another comic company. I don't know if they're still going. They were called CrossGen, and they would generally pay between sort of 150. Anyway, it was about half what this guide said, but. Yeah, anyway, just wanted to share that. It's just It's just funny. This, depending on the source that you get your information, you might find that you'll be wildly off from figuring out how much to charge based on what you think you know. So I think it's always worth finding different people in the industry and getting a general gist of what different people are charging to help sort of price your own artworks moving forward.
So anyway, you could simply do a Google search and just say how much to charge for the book. That's the same thing that basically the clients do. So I'm still surprised when a lot of people say, look, I want to illustrate a 32-page book and I have $1,000. So, okay, well, good luck. Because it would say probably somewhere between 3 and 10, and then you would see where you kind of fall in this category. And do not forget that every book is different. There could be a book for 0 to 2, right, this age group, and you would just illustrate some big object there and put a letter in the corner. This is it. Or it could be a very complex illustration, whimsical, tons of details, or maybe something else. So just think about the complexity of a project as well. Another mistake, which
Okay, are we back? Apparently I just lost internet. Okay, so Philip says really enjoying this freezing and buffering a lot. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know if it's my connection or whether it's just the streaming app that I'm using, OBS, where my settings aren't quite right. It's only the second time I've streamed, so I'm still trying to figure it out, and hopefully I will get there as things continue. But at least we're back online as far as I can see.
About spending my time trying to come up with a quote where I give 6,000 and you only have one. I would rather ask for the client's budget, and then of course the details of the project, as many details as there could be, because this would give you a much better understanding of what you're working with, and then you might even have an idea, okay, so that's the client's budget, always negotiable, by the way. And then you would think, all right, so maybe I add a little more, or I'm totally comfortable with this project because with this budget because I love this project and I want to do it. It's my first client. Let's go. So do ask about the client's budget. There is
In my experience of asking, I don't know, let's just say the last 50 clients what their budget was, I would say 0 have ever said, oh yeah, let me tell you, my budget is $10,000. None have ever said that. They've always then said, well, no, we want you to tell us what this is going to cost us. Right. I know in theory it sounds like a good idea to ask them to make the first move to announce what their budget is. But I've always been asked, how much is this project going to cost me? And I've always had to be the one to then gauge just generally how much to charge. And I've always had to just basically what I do is I look at the company, like I say, if it's an established company that already has 20 products, I can see what their products are sort of selling for. I can see how big their sort of market share is. I can get a gist of how big the company is and how much money they're potentially making. And then I can say, well, you seem like a fairly, profitable, well-established company. It's going to cost you £10,000. If they're not so big, if this is their first ever project, then I might have to say, oh, £5,000. So I'll normally go from there. It's really difficult though, because as soon as you say, oh, it's going to cost £10,000, if their budget is 5,000, you don't want them to go elsewhere. But normally they'll say, oh no, that's a bit out of our budget. And then after they say, no, that's out of our budget, you then can do the second round of negotiation. You can say, well, what were you thinking so far as a budget goes? Or what would be your budget? Or, let me know what you had in mind, and I'll see if there are any just adjustments I could make. You don't want to just drop your price, and if you say £10,000 and they say, no, we thought closer to 2,000, you don't want to immediately go back and say, yeah, okay. Because then you just look like the whole time you were just trying to rip them off for an extra £8,000. So they're not going to trust you for the rest of the project. But if you can say, well, look, I can do it for that, but I'll have to make a few compromises here and there. Normally, something that people are cool with is timelines. So if you can say, well, if you don't mind waiting an extra few weeks, I'm happy to drop the price because I was going to do it quicker. But if we extend the deadline, then potentially maybe I could drop the price down, or maybe you could just reduce the level of finish. There's lots of things to do, but yeah, I don't know. Not never, but I rarely have someone come along and offer a price for things. Yeah, I would say it happens maybe like 1% of the time for me. Yeah, about one in every 100 requests. I don't know how many job requests I've had, a few hundred. So maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get the.
no mystery there. There's no reason the client wouldn't say, and it's definitely not a bad tone. Well, it's business. We're working with money, with the quote right now, right? And probably one more thing here I would definitely say is that by getting the answer you're not comfortable with, like maybe the price is too low, you're afraid to walk away. So please, from the very beginning, try to understand that if you will be undercharging, it will burn you out and you would not, absolutely not enjoy being an illustrator. So know your worth from the very beginning, very beginning. Do not give lower prices than you have to. Please, you have to understand that if a client is serious, they have already researched the marketing price for a certain thing. You do not get the price from the moon, and it's not necessarily very, very high, right? So just understand that it's probably not your client. You have to take care of your mental health, because if you don't, if you work for pennies, trust me, this is going to be a nightmare. These are all the
I can imagine as well, if you're like her and you're doing a book project and it's a 32-page book project, yeah, you whatever you do, don't undersell yourself. You know, I'll stick to pounds rather than dollars, but you don't want to offer the whole project for £1,000 and know that it's going to take you 3 months to complete, because yeah, it's going to be a nightmare. But for smaller jobs, and I imagine most people's first job, even if you're a kid's book illustrator, it's probably going to be, you know, little character mascots and, you know, things like that, like, yeah, little character designs, or, you know, like a greetings card. You know, it's going to be a solo one-off project. I actually think it's probably not a bad idea to start a little bit lower, just to get the job, just to get the experience and to get that under your belt. I think it's all good and well saying, no, you know, be confident, charge high off the bat. But when you haven't had any experience or very little experience of being a professional, I don't think you can do that. I think it's better off just completing the project and thinking, okay, well, we have a completed project under our belt. The client was willing to spend, say, £1,000. So next time I'm gonna shoot for 2,000, and then you just gradually raise prices over time. I think it might actually be a bad idea to go too high too soon before you have any clout or understanding of the whole project, sort of before you begin. So yeah. Anyway.
the mistakes I wanted to share with you. I know that with practice, you will definitely be a pro in giving the best quote to your client. And I want to add that maybe the idea of this video was because what I see from a lot of illustrators is that they are not comfortable with doing too much communication with the client, specifically negotiating. And to be honest, again, according to my experience, it's a lot of negotiating. Even in the middle of the project, in the end of the project, that's a solid part of it. It's not like every client will say, I want to do this, there will be no edits, and this is the amount of money I will pay without asking any questions. So it's not how it works, and you should never overthink it. By understanding that here I am, I can deliver this project, I'm not afraid, please don't be afraid. You know, as they say, you have to imagine what's the worst thing that would happen if you don't maybe do the project well and you understand I can't do it. You will just refund the money and apologize. But trust me, that's probably not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So think about this. Don't be afraid to charge really for what your work costs, and try to enjoy the process, right? Because that's a solid part of being an illustrator. I hope this information was valuable and useful for you. If you need any additional support or some kind of personalized support, I also offer one-on-one consultations where we could work out some plan according to your request. Maybe it's your style, maybe it's looking for and getting the client.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, pricing mistakes. What do I think of this? Yeah, I think she actually had a lot of good information. I think there's things where it probably just wasn't quite presented in the best possible way. I mean, who am I to critique it? It's better than the videos I put out, but still, yeah, I think generally there's some good little tidbits and some good things to think about, and I think she'd do well to elaborate on these points and give examples of a project she did. But it's good for me, because maybe I could think, oh, well, I'm in the art space, maybe I could put out a video where I actually give an example of a project that came in and actually what that looked like. Because honestly, if I showed someone, okay, this is an email I got from a customer, and this is how I negotiated the terms, and this is the sort of things we talked about so far as revisions go, and all that kind of stuff, I think that would be actually really valuable to beginners. I'm not sure if I want to become a sort of a teacher of that stuff. I'm not really taking on sort of those kind of freelance jobs just now, but still, I could just do it just as a thing to potentially give some advice. So yeah, this was print. People wanted to pay nothing for custom 6-foot stickers. Definitely didn't want to pay for the art, just the media and the ink. It was very demoralising. So yeah, sorry, you're saying that just people basically aren't willing to pay for products and are a bit stingy when it comes to price, not willing to pay what things are worth. Because yeah, I think that is the trouble, isn't it? Because I think when you're putting a product together, it's like there's so much that goes into it. Yeah, and if you are putting stickers together, like, wow, yeah, 6-foot ones. I mean, okay, so you worked in a wrap print shop as a designer. Ah, okay. So was that like automotive stuff? Was that like cars and vehicles and things? Because yeah, I can imagine that you just have so many people that expect some signage or something to, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, you'd expect some people just think, oh, I want a little bit of signage for my van or my car or something. And yeah, they probably expect it's going to cost them a couple of £100. Are you European? Are you euros? I think you're euros, aren't you? So yeah, a couple of €100, and it's like, no, this is gonna cost a lot more than that, especially if you're, probably, I'd imagine the machines for cutting 6-foot stickers. Oh, you're not European, okay. Either way, the machines you use for cutting, large scale sort of vinyl stickers or whatever, I mean, they must cost tens of thousands or certainly a lot of money. And just to set that whole thing up, it's obviously going to be very expensive, and people can be very tight when it comes to what they're willing to pay. But, what can you do? It costs what it costs. So, yeah. This was a video. It just popped up in my newsfeed. I thought, oh, okay, let's see if there's any mistakes I'm making. I think for a beginner, there's definitely some information here. Yeah. 33 views on this video. So, yeah. Just did a good job.
Lines or whatever it is. So there is a link in the description. Go out. Bye.
I don't know if this is going to be an art tips, being a professional type video.
So I was in a department store.
But it just popped up again on my newsfeed, and I thought I'd bookmark it and see what it's all about. It's only a quick one. What happens to wall art? Just I guess we'll find out.
The other day, and I walked past the wall art section. It's the kind you'd see in any generic store. It's difficult to talk about this on a platform like YouTube, where people making art that looks like this does pretty well, but hopefully the Art Loud audience here are discerning enough to see the angle I'm going to try and come at it on. Some of these pictures look like original paintings. Paint had been applied to these prints to mimic authenticity. So now I'd look at the next print and realise the paint marks were slightly different, meaning they had been done by hand. On the surface, it's quite clever. I'm not anti-print. I have movie posters in my house and prints of artworks that I couldn't afford. However, seeing these, I just had to explore why it made me feel so very sad. Maybe you'll agree with me and maybe you won't. And either way, I'd love to know what you think. And to kind of frame this, I want to go back to when original paintings were in their heyday in the home. In the Victorian era, houses were built with picture rails as standard. Original artworks hung flexibly without damaging plaster. Walls were richly decorated. Most of those pictures were originals. So the art on those walls was often made by amateurs or hobbyists. People often knew the artist, or they knew the place, or they had painted it themselves. Each image was a small window into a direct and unique lived experience, a history of that household. Then, tastes changed. Industrialization allowed for mechanical reproduction. You could buy a fine reproduction of a Turner or a Constable. And at the same time as this, after the Second World War, minimalism slowly became more fashionable. Ornaments were seen as clutter, while the art world started to professionalize. Salons, galleries, dealers, and artworks became financial assets. Domestic creations migrated into galleries and collections. Art as a personal financial asset was born. And then came television. The post-war living room became arranged around a screen. And later computers and smartphones would dominate visual attention. Static art in the home became secondary. It became a decorative idea, not a focal point. Art in the home slowly became design. In the Victorian era, artworks were self-contained. Now, people buy pictures because they match the curtains. In expensive homes, you'll often see large abstract works where the curve in the line of a large minimalist work might mirror the curve of the staircase. I have art in my home that I think I would class as more like design because it kind of fits the space. It's interesting here how we look at trying to define the difference between art and design. David Hockney once said, "Art has to move you, design does not, unless it's a good design for a bus." And I'd like to take that a little bit further and say that good design requires the consistency, a lack of tension, if you will. Art often thrives in tension. Not necessarily in composition, but sometimes in subject. To take it to an extreme, think of Picasso's Guernica, filled with violence and distortion, a clash that unsettles you. That's tension. Or Francis Bacon's portraits. But let's take design now to its extreme. The interior of an Apple store, perfectly designed, seamless, frictionless. It's excellent design, but it's not art. There's a great industrial designer called Adrian Frutier who once said, when trying to describe how typefaces in newspapers should not be noticed, just the words that they are saying, that if you remember the shape of your spoon at lunch, it was the wrong shape. I love that quote. A perfect spoon perfectly fits the space in your mouth and you don't notice it. And that's what a lot of people say about art now. In their home, they put a piece of art up and they say it's the perfect fit. They don't say it moved them. They don't say it reminds them of. They don't say it was made by. They don't say it makes me feel. They say it looks good above the sofa. The personal stories unique to the homes of old are gone. The pictures in Homebase are design. They feature in 500,000 homes. Once the personal stories we hung over dining tables and sofas carried memory and meaning, and now they're replaced by this generic decor. Art's role in the home has been reduced to filling empty walls, or increasingly seen as just pointless and not placed in the home at all. But original art was never trying to be good design. What it did was carry a thread between the maker and the viewer. We forget that art is a bridge between human hearts, if you will. However humble, however jarring they may be with the pattern on the cushions, I'd rather see someone's blurry amateur watercolour of a favourite place in their hallway than I would the world's most polished painter or professional photographer shooting that same scene. Because that amateur who I am talking to, whose home I am stood in, holds a memory. People know this deep down, but they are embarrassed, worried what others will think if they were to put that up. They think that their home must seem nice and pleasant to the eye and anyone else's eye, not make them feel like they're at home. You feel at home with people who are not perfect, but you want to sit in a perfect room. I feel like homes should be full of things that are personal, not just full of functional items. And this is why the half-painted prints in that store in Homebase are the most disturbing of all. The human heart has re-entered in the worst possible way, not through any kind of mutual connection or creativity, but through industrial, near slavery shackles, so that someone can sit beneath one and feel connected more to the artist because it's more like a painting. But people don't think that way. They just think it looks pretty, and now it looks more like an actual painting. But after doing this little exploration, I'm actually tempted to buy one, because I can't not see the human. And maybe it will act as a daily reminder of the conditions that other more functional things in my house are made under. Well, then again, maybe I'm just supporting an industry that I don't want to. I'm interested to know what you think. And if you want to join me in the discussion, you can reply on my Patreon and I'll get back to you there. And for the rest of you, I'll hopefully see you in the comments.
Okay, interesting little video. I mean, it must have been interesting because I basically watched the whole thing through without stopping it. But yeah, it was a good. It's just that's what time. It's just a quick sort of 6-7 minute idea about art, and it is very true that I think a lot of it's just become design. And the amount of people's houses you go into, and you get a gist of what is popular and what people want. It's not even just people's houses. Talking about tattoos earlier. The amount of people that want a tattoo of something that happens to be popular at this moment, just because you're perhaps too ashamed to have the thing that you would really want. Perhaps you don't even know what you really want. I think a lot of the clients I had, they wanted a tattoo the same way they probably would want interior designed art to mean something, but they don't really know what they like or what does mean anything. So they outsource that to just the mainstream. What is popular? What are people having as tattoos now? What are people hanging on their walls? And then a lot of these people end up getting the same tattoos. It's what is it? It's like hourglasses or compasses, things to do with like time and direction, like these symbols, which not a bad idea. But then you get butterflies, infinity symbols, stars, religious type imagery, even if the people aren't particularly religious. People are just desperate for meaning, but they don't really know what meaning is. And then for their homes, like I say, it'll be a city scene of New York. It'll all be like desaturated in grayscale, with the skyscrapers in grayscale, but the taxis, the yellow New York taxi cabs, they'll be still in colour. They'll be yellow and stand out, and it'll be photographed really well. It'll look like a really good picture, but it'll also be the same picture that like 50% of every human being on this planet seems to own. And you do sort of wonder, well, what does that mean to you? Have you ever been to New York? I mean, the amount of people that I know that have that picture, and I'm living in the UK. I'm like, have you ever even been to the States? Okay, so Philip says, I like this guy. I've watched this stuff. Yeah, I think he's got some interesting ideas there. People buy the artist often. Yeah. Philip, I used to do caricatures for a while, still sort of do them. It's a way to make a quick, immediate buck, pound, etc. But people really seem to like it. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think sometimes you just got to try different things and see basically what works for you and what works for other people, and then go from there. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm not very good at drawing people. Like, I think people want customized, personalized things. So yeah, if you can draw a person, you can draw a caricature, then people will always value that to some degree, having a personalized piece. But it does take some skill, I think, to be able to not only get a likeness, but to sort of put that kind of stylistic spin on it. It looks really easy when I see caricature artists draw very quick, line drawing sketches of people with sort of exaggerated features, and I'm like, that looks just like them. And it only took like 5 minutes, but I know the amount of skill that must have gone into that kind of thing. So why don't you tattoo anymore? There was a couple of reasons. Firstly, I was getting mostly I was getting stressed out by it. So my cancellation rate in I can't remember, the last year that I recorded it was about 35%. So 35% of customers that would book would end up inevitably cancelling their appointments. And it was getting really stressful. I thought, well, if I'm to make a living from being a tattoo artist, how am I going to do it if over a third of all customers book their appointment? And because I had a private studio, I couldn't do walk-ins. So basically people couldn't walk in off the street and see if I had space, and I could then fit them in for a day's tattooing. And I didn't have a huge client list. So if you've got like a lot of customers and you've been in the game for a while, if you again are working in a tattoo shop and the shop has a website, you can sometimes advertise on your social media and say, oh, I've had a no-show today. Does anyone want to come in and get some work done? There wasn't the opportunity to do that. So yeah, there would be times when I'd be ready to work. Customer wouldn't show up. And after a while I started like increasing the amount of the deposit to try and mitigate that. So obviously they would lose their deposit if they didn't turn up for the day. But yeah, just people got really complacent, just didn't turn up, didn't respect my time, and that got really stressful. Equally, I would get really bad neck ache from working tattooing. So unlike regular art, when at any point you can just stand up, take a break, when you have a customer sitting in a chair in front of you, you can't just take a break. They're there waiting to get their tattoo finished, and they're relying on you to keep going until it's finished. That's what they're paying you for. And you're basically creating an open wound on someone's skin. So there's incentive for you to just, if you're going to wound someone, you might as well finish the job while you're there. And you can't just say after an hour, you know what, I think I've had enough of this. Come back tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. Firstly, you can't rework on freshly wounded skin when you're tattooing. You have to typically give it sort of 4 to 6 weeks before you can sort of go back to the same area. So you kind of want to get it all done in one hit. And as I said, as I have said before, I'm very slow when it comes to creating artwork and drawing and stuff like that. And because I'm so slow at it, a tattoo which the next guy would do in 2 hours, it would take me 4 hours. So my work was good, and I would say to people, look, I'm not the fastest tattoo artist out there. If you want someone quicker, I can recommend, Joey Tattoo Man down the road, and Joey will do you a quick tattoo, but it will look good. And people would say to me, yeah, it's fine, I'm happy as long as it looks good at the end. I'm happy for it to sit there for as long as I need to sit there. Now they would say that, but then when it came to enduring the pain of tattooing over sort of 7, 8, 9 hours, they would be in agony. I would be in agony. And then at the end of it, I was just getting quite frustrated. And yeah, there was other reasons as well. I mean, I haven't even mentioned COVID happened, and basically that meant I couldn't tattoo for all of 2020 pretty much, and part of 2021. And I realised at that point that I didn't want to be completely relying on, another sort of lockdown situation where the whole country's locked off and I don't have access to work and stuff like that. So, yeah, there was a few other reasons as well, but yeah, that gives a bit of a backstory with the tattooing thing. Yeah, deposits. Yeah, people would just sacrifice a deposit. It was only after I said, right, we're going to have to start increasing the deposit amount. It's difficult as well because sometimes people would. I mean, I did it such that if people cancel within, I think, 24 or 48 hours, they would lose all their deposit. But if they cancelled within like 3 or 4 days, they would lose half the deposit, stuff like that. Especially if it was like £100 deposit. Because at the end of the day, they're still your clients, and sometimes they're long-term clients, and you don't want to upset them too much by keep taking their money all the time. But again, maybe I should have done. Maybe I was being too soft with these people, and that was all on me. I wouldn't be surprised if I should take responsibility for that. That was my problem. And yeah, so far as the game goes, so when was it? A few years ago, I kind of felt like if I'm not doing the tattooing anymore, and I want to be selling my art prints and getting commissions and stuff, but if people aren't coming forward to give me commissions, or people aren't buying my art prints or my t-shirts or whatever, then I would just spend the time where I'm not packing prints or art pieces of artwork in creating my own game. And it was a 2-player head-to-head card game, kind of like a board game. And originally it was just going to be a little fun project, just to see if I could make it. And then I thought, actually, this is a good game. I should turn this into an actual tangible thing, create artwork for all the cards, and test run it, create a rule book, create a cover for the box and stuff like that. And in the end, I think I'm now like 90. What would I say? Like 98% finished with the whole project. Some of the box art I haven't finished. Like I haven't done the sort of design work for the back of the box, stuff like that. That'll only take a day or two. So we're pretty much there. I got quotes from some companies in China, which are constantly forever bugging me. That's the trouble. If you ever get quotes from companies in China and you don't go ahead with the work straight away, even if you say the project's been put on hiatus, they will still message you every month. They're quite relentless over there. So yeah, I said I got some quotes, and I realised that I would need a minimum order of about 5. Ideally, you want a minimum order of 1,000 units, 1,000 games, in order to make the project sort of like put the costs down enough to make it viable. But I could get away with 500 units, copies of this game. So the idea would be to get them manufactured in China, get them sent to me, and then I would probably send them out myself. It would be as it would be like a small starter project. Sort of 500 isn't big so far as quantities go for a product. I thought that would be the best way to do it. Another way to do it would be to use distribution centers. So you could get like 300 copies sent to a distribution center in the US, another 100 sent to a distribution center in Poland, and another 100 copies sent to a distribution center in the UK. And then those centers could then fulfill the orders for the customers that you would basically have on hand ready to go. Anyway, the trouble is I didn't have the customers, and the idea was to get the customers via Kickstarter, so do a Kickstarter campaign, which is something that I wanted to get around to talking about more. I just haven't got around to it yet. So I kind of realised that I would need what we were talking about earlier with the email sign-up. So I'd need an email list to kind of get people interested in the idea of the game, so that I kind of have a gauge of roughly how many people might then go on to back it once the project was listed up for people to back. Anyway, I couldn't find a way to build the list. I couldn't figure out how to do it. It's like earlier in this stream, the lady was talking about building up your email list. I don't know how to do that. I haven't got anyone that's necessarily telling me how to build it, other than to say, go on social media and ask. So I didn't know what to do. So, well, that is what I did. So I went on Instagram and I posted about 50 Instagram posts related to the game. So I'd post like a sketch for one of the card arts, or I'd post a character artwork that would be featured on one of the card artworks, or one of the cards. And in every post I said, basically, here's the card. You know, you can support what I'm doing via the link on my website. And I did that, posted it on my social medias, so there was 50 posts across, I think, about 5 social media channels: X, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Pinterest, Blue Sky. Mentioned it on YouTube, obviously, made a couple of videos talking about it. And I think after all was said and done, it resulted in about between 0 and 1 email list sign-ups, which I just find quite funny, really. So you do all of that work and you just don't get anywhere. Because I'm just a complete novice. I don't really know what I'm doing. I can only go on what people tell you to do. So people might, people in a position of authority might say, you need an email list. I was like, right, so that's how I, build this up. And then I have to figure out, well, how to do that. And people say, well, you need to post on social media. So I would go away and do that. But then what do? There's obviously something missing here. And I'm just too thick, too dumb, too stupid to figure it out. So yeah. What about a video of people enjoying and playing the game? Have you tested it? So yeah, I've tested it dozens of times with lots of different people. So I know the game works. I've only kind of filmed it a little bit with a couple of people. So I've got I set up a separate YouTube channel where I basically put a couple of promo videos up for the game. Showed a few sort of time-lapse playthroughs, explanation of the rules, stuff like that. And the only thing I can think of now is to maybe start like a new Instagram and a new Twitter, like everything from scratch, like I did with Blue Sky. Basically, I set up a Blue Sky account, and that ended up being the most engaging platform for me to discuss my game. Like I say, it didn't result in any email lists sign-ups, but I did tend to get a few reshares and 20 or so likes per post, which was good for a brand new account that only had like 10 followers on it. I mean, that outperformed my 30,000 Instagram followers. So, it just goes to show that perhaps the numbers don't matter so much as the newness of the account itself. I kind of think if you like with Instagram, 10 years ago, I went away, I built my following up, didn't really do anything with the account, kind of let it go a bit dormant, let it die off a little bit. Me coming back to the account a decade later and trying to talk about a game rather than just me posting about art in general. Like, I think it wasn't really connecting with people. Instagram wasn't sharing my posts with the right audience, with my audience. So I did kind of wonder if it might be a good idea to start a completely fresh social media channel. Someone that I spoke to who basically gives advice to game developers said that might be a good idea. So it's just time, isn't it? It's thinking, right, okay, got to go away, set up a new account, start a daily posting schedule, figure out exactly what I'm going to post, how I'm going to figure that out. And it's just difficult when everything is just so speculative. Like, there are no guarantees that anything will work. And I've become very bitter and cynical, if you hadn't already noticed, about the whole endeavour of being an artist, promoting yourself across social media, because unlike most people, I've done it. I've been in the game for the last couple of decades, on and off. And I know what it's like to, build a website, build a social media platform, and not basically get anywhere with it, or not quite get to where you want, not for it to not facilitate the objectives that you were sort of promised from other people that, advised you go away and do those things. And partly it's down to me. I'll admit I'm not the best marketer. I'm not putting out the best things. I don't latch onto trends and exploit exploit trends and things that are happening on social media in order to boost my following. I'm kind of trying to just do my own thing, and I'm sure people look at what I'm doing in the same way I look at other people who I think are failing, and I sort of and they sort of then shake their heads a little bit and think, oh, this guy doesn't really know what he's doing. He's really not worth kind of listening to or following. And it's it kind of just makes you feel a little bit like hard to know sort of where to go next with it, really. So I guess that's why I'm struggling. That's why I'm in sort of like a state of frustration with things at the minute, I suppose. So yeah, Instagram being taken over by Facebook isn't the best sign. Yeah, I think as soon as it did get taken over by Facebook, it seemed to go downhill across the board. You need to feel some good hugs. It's been a rough for creators for a little bit, especially the introverted ones. Yeah, I think it is. I think that's a good point, because if you are like my whole idea was to never be in front of a camera, because I know that I suck at this, and so I always just wanted to have a website, and I wanted to communicate via my website's blog. So I would go away and I would write blog posts that would, there would be 2,000 words deep. I think my blog post's actually really good, but I also got the feeling that people don't have time for blogs now so much, and people want video content more. So now I'm trying to become almost like a TV presenter, like a video presenter, which is the sort of career that I know I'm not suited to. It's the sort of career or the sort of hobby or endeavour in general that I would never want to do as like a kid, sort of thing. It's the one, like, I would always want to be behind the camera, and the extrovert, outgoing people that enjoy the limelight, let them have the limelight. I'm more than happy for them to go away and have it. So, but yeah, it's become I've come to the conclusion that in order to be a creator in 2025, you haven't got a choice. You've got to show, in order to compete with AI and the upcoming onslaught of AI content takeover, you've just got to try and be a human being until human beings basically get replaced with AI avatars that pretty much do effectively the same thing. So I've maybe got a little bit of time just to try and establish myself potentially as a human being on the internet, and then go from there. But anyway, that just gives a whole, it gives another backstory to where I've been with all these things. So yeah, us introverted types, it's a difficult time, I think, because I think most artists are generally quite introvert. The extroverts are just going off, socializing at parties and stuff, and the introverts are staying at home working on their introverted activities, their hobbies, the things that they would do in the solitary confinement of their own homes and things. It's sort of part and parcel. You do get extrovert illustrators as well, but I'd imagine there's a disproportionate amount of more introverted types. Sorry, I think I probably lost track of the comments. So no, you don't. Where I didn't read them. Not sure what that's related to. I'm here jealous because you've got 18k subscribers on YouTube. Yes, Phil, thank you. That's my point. Sorry, I meant 1k subscribers, but I'm still struggling to reach 500. He's got more on IG, yeah. So, I mean, I had the start of this year, I had 200 and, I think it was about 260 subscribers on YouTube. And then that slowly went up to about 290 until about 2 months ago, when I posted a video basically moaning about what I'm moaning about today, which is the struggle about the artist endeavour. And I was questioning about just quitting the whole thing, and that video went sort of semi-viral. It got like 13,000 views, and off the back of that, that pretty much brought me up to sort of close to 1,000 subscribers. But that's how it goes. Apparently, sometimes you pump out the videos, or you pump out the things. You wait for that one that sort of gets a little bit of traction. That can be enough to then get the ball rolling. But in the meantime, I think, yeah. So if you've got 500 subscribers, you feel like you're stuck at 500. Yeah, it can be very kind of demoralizing if the goal is to sort of increase your reach. And I'm sure, like most people, like we're not vain, shallow arseholes that just want people to validate us and tell us how great we are. We just want to connect with other human beings that can relate to what we're trying to do. And the internet is so amazing that everyone is pretty much on it now, or everyone under the age of, say, 60 or 70, and will continue to be on it. And we can potentially connect with everyone. And you just think there must be an audience for even the weirdos like me in the world. There must be a good few thousand people that can kind of relate to where I'm coming from in some way, and think, there's something good about that. But yeah, it's just trying to get that one or two or three, sort of viral hits, the sort of the impression spikes on a YouTube video that actually allow other people to see what you're potentially doing, and actually, potentially then care about that and go on to subscribe, etc. But yeah, so Instagram, that was something that I poured a lot of time into sort of 10, 15 years ago, and that's how I built up a following. And originally I had a following of, it was about 45,000 Instagram followers. And every day I lose followers, unlike most people that normally gain one or two. And I've lost over 10,000 followers in about 10, 15 years. Because the reason I got a lot of followers on Instagram was because I would just go out and I would interact with everyone. I would just like everyone's stuff. I would follow people, and I would comment on people's posts. Just anyone who was doing anything that I was interested in or that was related to what I was doing. I was very prolific with it, and people would then just follow back or follow me just in reciprocation. They would just think, oh, well, thank you for commenting on my thing. I'll give you a follow in support. The trouble is, I don't think a lot of those people really, they were following me because they were doing it out of a sort of sense of duty or politeness, rather than because they genuinely cared. All of them, but yeah, there was enough of them such that over time they sort of dropped off, and I'm sure I probably ended up having a few thousand bot accounts that followed me at some point, and then they've all been thrown off the platform, which is good. But yeah, so that was a little backstory with my Instagram journey. So Philip, I lucked out on IG because of one silly post that went viral. Oh, brilliant. But I have to say that it hasn't done much for me. Okay, well, at least you had the one viral post, because like I'm saying, with something like YouTube, it's difficult when you put a video out there and another one and another one, and you're told, well, no, you've got to put out 100 videos, or you've got to keep at this for 3 or 4 years till you gain the traction. And it never used to be that hard, and it's difficult to then, I guess, maintain the enthusiasm to keep at it, hoping that you'll eventually get that one that sort of helps you take off. But at least that, I always think these little evidence nodes, kind of, where you do have that little bit of success, they kind of show that, well, at least it is possible. It's like the first time you ever sell your artwork. It's like, wow, someone actually paid for my artwork, or someone actually wanted to commission me and pay me money to draw a picture of whatever it was. And as soon as you've had a few of those, they at least teach you what is possible. And until you get that, I think it can be very difficult for people to handle it. So it's good that we've had a few, pockets of success, I guess, even if ultimately it hasn't, turned into like a full-blown, super successful career. So I started streaming simply because I saw a meme that said, if 1% of people find you attractive, and then the number of people that was. Yeah, I'm slowly losing mine too, but I personally think there's more potential on YouTube. Yeah, people need connections. So you're saying that you saw a meme that said, if 1% of people find you attractive, then the number of people was... Don't quite get that message, but feel free to elaborate. Yeah, it's a shame though, isn't it, with Instagram? Like, I've probably posted about 800 plus times up on that platform. And if you think about it, like, if every post you sort of think, you're trying to format one of your images to sort of fit at least it used to had to be a 1-to-1 ratio square back in the day. They've changed it to now allowing 4:3 ratios. But yeah, you're formatting your artwork to fit in this little square, and then you might add a few filters to it. You might write a description, hashtags and keywords. Those were popular back in the day, and you do that, and it takes a little bit of time, and you do it again and again and again. Just getting to 100 posts is actually quite an achievement. There's quite a lot of sort of time that's gone into building that. And sort of populating that whole platform. So it does seem a shame when you start out with good intentions on these platforms and it seems like things could work out, and then the algorithm changes and you no longer get your posts offered up to your subscribers or the audience as a whole. And Edin, hello to you too. If you have any thoughts on art and design, that's what we're discussing at the moment. How to become professionals, how to become a professional artist, illustrator in the modern age. But yeah, people need connections. And it is interesting as well because, I think these days you read a lot about mental health with people and people feeling really isolated and like they need connection and stuff. Yet at the same time, there's so many factors in play that basically prevent us human beings from being able to engage in it. Yeah, weird times that we live in. Right, I'm going to move on to another video now. This one is, you don't need this to make money as an artist.
How do I grow my social media? This is one of the most common questions I get, and it's for a good reason. In order to make money as an artist, you have to grow your social media following. People talk about how important marketing and branding is for artists. It's important for your career and your future. Or is it? Did you know that many professional artists don't have a social media account at all?
None.
If this is surprising to you, keep watching, because I'll explain why social media might not be as important as you think it is, especially for those who want to turn art into a career. Some people might be a little confused by this, because if you look literally anywhere online, you'll see amazing professional artists with tons of followers. In fact, I spoke to some of those amazing artists and they all agreed that visibility helped them land a number of jobs. So why am I still saying that social media isn't important? So here's the problem. Many, if not most, highly skilled artists in the entertainment industry barely have an online presence at all. So by simply hanging out in online spaces, you're not likely to encounter them. So unless you're working with them or know people in the industry, you might not even know they exist. And it kind of makes sense, actually.
Okay, so this, I think, is talking more about people, working in the industry. So it's like people, if you're a concept artist for film games and you have like a regular in-house position within these kind of niches, then yeah, you don't need the social media. You literally just need the single portfolio website, web page typically, and once you're in there, once you've got a foot in the door, that's it. I wonder if the not needing social media still applies if you're sort of trying to turn art into a sort of freelance type of business and you're not relying solely on a full-time or sort of contractual work within established bigger companies.
That they don't all have massive social media accounts. If you think about it, how did these artists get so incredibly cracked in the first place? They probably had to spend a long time practicing and polishing their skills. In fact, growing a following and posting on social media is work that can potentially distract them from other things, like improving their art skills. So does that mean that marketing isn't actually important? That it's not worth spending time on at all? That's not what I'm saying. Obviously, marketing, branding, networking, these things are all very important. However, even though the artists I spoke to said that visibility is a great thing, they all agreed that something else was even more important. And that other thing was, of course, their foundational art skills. The opportunities came after they built up their skills and portfolio, not the other way around. But because so many people ask me about social media, I worry that some people might be getting their priorities a little mixed up. And they
Okay, so I think this is going to be a sort of cautionary tale to make sure that your art is good enough to warrant getting money for it before you start investing in social media journey. And perhaps this is going to hit home a little bit because I kind of feel like I'm not quite at that top end level yet with my own artwork and stuff. Yet I feel like I know I can sell art, but I also know that I could probably sell 5 times the amount if I could fix some of the problems with my sort of quality level. So yeah, Eden, no worries, have fun, just passing by and connected to you. Yeah, that's cool. Happy to have people drop in.
might be spending more time trying to game algorithms or run art raffles, etc., rather than trying to improve their base craft level. If you take a minute to think about the purpose of marketing, it's to make sure that your art makes its way to the right pair of eyeballs at the right time. For example, a good set of eyeballs would be a hiring manager looking to hire an artist for their project. But this is only useful if the art impresses them so much that they want to pay an artist money for it. If the work isn't what people need, then it doesn't matter how many hiring managers see it. They're not gonna want to hire that artist. And I'm not trying to say that anyone's art is bad, but it's important to be realistic about how much demand there is for your work, how it measures up to others in the field, and how appropriate it is for the roles that you're aiming for. However, I'm not saying it's impossible that somebody wants to hire an artist specifically for the number of followers that they have. But in that case, they're probably more interested in publicity than the art itself. For instance, an NFT project would probably value that publicity a great deal more than usual. But wait, hang on. Doesn't something here not really make sense? It's fine to say that people should practice their art fundamentals, but even if someone's art is insanely good, without social media, how will they get discovered? How can someone give you money for your art if they don't even know you exist? Fortunately, there's a very simple solution. If there's a specific art job that you want, you apply for it. Like any other job on the planet, you have to brush up your resume and apply. And of course, don't forget to include your portfolio as well, since this is an art job we're talking about. While it is possible for recruiters to find candidates by scrolling their Twitter feeds, they're more likely to be searching for candidates on portfolio websites like ArtStation. And don't underestimate the power of word of mouth. People looking to hire artists often ask their friends or colleagues for recommendations. If you do a good job, you may get recommended for new opportunities later on. An art job really isn't that different from a regular job. Okay, I know for a lot of people, this was probably pretty obvious. So why did I want to talk about this in the first place? One thing I've been noticing is that it seems to be pretty common these days for lecturers and teachers in art schools to ask their students to go out and interview a professional artist to learn about the industry. Some of them even end up asking me, which has always been a little funny because while I do have nearly a decade of experience in the games industry, that's as a programmer, not an artist. But some artists that have gotten interviewed by students have noticed that a lot of them seem to have misconceptions about getting work as an artist. Typically, many ask questions about social media because they're convinced that having a strong online presence is critical to their future and their career. I've literally seen people run art raffles on Twitter to, quote, secure their future as an artist. It's a bit concerning to me if people genuinely think they need tens of thousands of followers to survive as a professional artist. No wonder people are getting stressed out about algorithms if they think their future hangs on it. But as we all know, that's not the only reason people want a big following. What other reasons are there? People want to grow their social media for all sorts of reasons, and one major one is that as artists, they want more people to see their work. There's nothing shameful about this feeling. It's natural to want to share what you work so hard on. But of course, we need to make sure that we don't become reliant on social media for validation. And some people seem to think that simply having a lot of followers is a sign of having made it as an artist, that they're successful. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like having a large audience is a bad thing. It's great. But people tend to overestimate the benefits of just having a lot of followers. Unfortunately, you can't eat followers, and you can't use them to pay rent. Actually, I wonder if my landlord will accept rent in the form of likes and retweets. I personally know a lot of artists out there with huge Twitter or Instagram accounts that are barely making ends meet. And like I said before,
I think that's the thing with followers. Like, do people really just want followers for followers' sake? I think they're using followers and subscribers as a metric in order to show that they're kind of on the right path. And the right path, certainly for a lot of artists, is to become professional. That is to say, making money out of their artwork. And obviously, you know, if you've got a lot of followers, you've got a lot of people you could potentially contact, if not directly to ask to support your projects and your buy your products, but for them to potentially recommend you. So you could say, well, I'm working on this, like I would say, for example, I'm working on this new 2-player head-to-head card game. Do you know anyone who might be interested in it? And if I've got 1 million fans, that might know people that play card games and board games, even if they themselves don't do it, then that would help me. I don't know, like, unless you're like 10 years old, do you really care about the number of followers? I just wonder about that.
Visibility is a good thing. It can help you find clients, you can try selling merch or start a Patreon, but it doesn't automatically mean that you're making a lot of money. So instead of that, let's talk about some less well-known art careers where you definitely don't need a massive social media account. Sometimes it feels like the entertainment industry is all artists like to talk about, and it sort of makes sense. A lot of people who learn to draw are inspired by movies, comics, TV shows, and games. But did you know that there are actually a ton of interesting art jobs out there that people might not really know about? I'll give you a couple of examples. How do you feel about books? You can be a book cover illustrator. There are plenty of books out there that need eye-catching illustrations for their covers to get people to buy them. Or if you want your illustrations inside the book as well, you can try being a children's book illustrator. Alternatively, if you have an interest in science, you can be a scientific illustrator for textbooks. Did you know that there are people who get to draw dinosaurs for a living? However, if books aren't exactly your jam, you can do illustrations for marketing. Or how about creating merch to sell at in-person art or anime conventions? If you're at a physical location, your art and products will speak for themselves rather than having anything to do with the number of followers you have. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that there are other options out there, so don't limit yourself into thinking you have to follow one specific path. So, being an artist is hard enough already, and I wanted people to know that there are more alternatives out there than most people think. Once again, I'm not saying that marketing isn't important. Just make sure not to get your priorities mixed up. I'm just hoping that this video gives people a little bit of insight and helps people understand that you don't necessarily have to endlessly draw fan art to get people to follow you. Thank you so much for watching. If this video was helpful at all, consider following the subscribe button, and I'll catch you next time.
There you go.
Bye-bye!
PCATs. I feel like I've watched PCATs videos before. They're normally pretty good. PCAT has nearly 1 million subscribers, or is on their way there with 705. 221,000 views. It's crazy. I mean, thing is, it's worth it. I think it's a good message to put out. There's nothing I really disagree with there. I think having the cautionary tale, like I think PCAT probably doesn't want to be mean enough to like really kind of go hard with it, but maybe it might be worth saying like, seriously, is your work good enough? Because that probably is a big reason why you're not having the success you're having. And I think even that's probably even true with me. Of course, you then got to follow it up with like, well, what can you do to bring it up to the next level? And it's just kind of being realistic about the whole thing, really. So 1% of 7 billion people on the planet was 70 million. And that was a lot of followers. So I started streaming. Okay, so you're hoping to get 1% of the 7 billion. I quit, but I still miss it. I missed the 1K milestone. So did you reach 1K, Yvonne D? Because that would be pretty good. Don't validate me. I hear, Philip says, I hear over and over that it's not the number of subscribers, but it's the quality of engagement. Yeah, I think that's mostly true. Now, if you have 100,000 subscribers, you have social proof. So you're basically signaling to the rest of the world, without even them having watched or looked at your content, that your content is something of value, is something of worth, and that can then get you subscribers. Kind of ironically, like it takes subscribers to get subscribers. Like if you're starting out, for example, YouTube channel, and you have 0 to 1 subscribers, basically a lot of people are going to, well, firstly, a lot of people aren't going to see your videos, but the people that do are going to look at that number and they're going to think, oh, they've only got 1 people. Well, not many people like this person. I'm not going to bother following if most people don't seem to like them. And they'll either assume wrongly or rightly that channel isn't worthy of anything, or they just, I don't know, people have this weird sort of sheep mentality where they will only jump on board something that's already popular. So like PCAT here is going to be on their way and will probably, no doubt, if they continue putting out videos, get 1 million subscribers. Because anyone coming to this is thinking, 705 subscribers, they must be doing something right. And they are. I mean, it's a good little video. That's the thing. I don't begrudge anyone having like super success. I mean, a lot of the time people deserve it if they've got that amount of subscribers. They obviously deserve it. But there's also something to be said for just having the numbers can have benefits. Even with my Instagram account, like it's pretty much dormant and dead. I'll post on Instagram now, and I might only get like 2 or 3 likes on a post, but at a glance, people will say, "Whoa, you've got 35,000 followers on Instagram! Wow!" And they see that as a status thing. Now, I don't see it as a status thing. I'm not looking at it as a source of validation or status or kudos. But I'm just aware that that's what other people see. It's like when you walk down the street and if you're wearing designer clothing, expensive designer brands, like I don't really dress it like in many expensive designer brands. I can't afford to. I'm a starving artist. But even if I could afford it, I wouldn't potentially do it. But if I did do it, just even though it would make no difference to me what I was wearing, to certain other people, their estimation of me would change just based on how I'm dressed, because especially the sort of people that care about that sort of thing would look at me and see me in higher regard. Even though it doesn't really matter to me, and it probably doesn't even matter to most people, to those few people that care about that sort of thing, they're going to think, wow, okay, I'd better, be extra nice to this person or whatever. So it, just what I'm trying to say is quality is key, I think, with everything. But there is also some, I like to offer the counterpoint. There is a little something to the shallow metrics of just the numbers, for example. So yeah, just wanted to mention that point. Yeah, people are selling their own house of mirrors lately. Yeah, that is true. Some creators with fewer followers are making more money than those with higher subs. I think it's how connected you are with the audience. Yeah, I agree. Like subscribers don't really mean anything. Like yeah, it's not that they don't mean anything. Like I just went off on one to make that point. It does mean something to some people, but ultimately, so far as making money goes, the numbers in of itself don't really mean anything. Take for example the How to Draw book. I've drawn some How to Draw books. They have sold a combined, I think, like close to 1 million copies, which is absolutely insane. People would think that I am now a millionaire. They would think, well, surely you've made £1 or a couple of dollars per copy sold. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. My royalty rate for these books was like virtually nothing. It was a few pence, a few cents. It was it was like 5% or 1% of what you would expect it to be. And the reason was that these copies were sold in like huge quantities in bulk, and in order to sell and print them in such big quantities and get a customer that would buy them in those quantities, all the royalty rates and costs had to be reduced to virtually nothing, to the point where they were barely making a profit. So what I'm trying to say with that example is, so I've got the numbers. I can say, oh, I've sold nearly 1 million books, but it doesn't equate to a bank balance with millions and millions of pounds in it. I'm as broke as the next person, probably more so, because the books that I did were years ago, and the royalties I get from them now, like half the books I've done haven't even made up the original advance that I was paid. So with a lot of book deals, you normally have like an advance on royalties. So you'll have, you might have someone say, "I'll pay you $10,000 to make a book," and you'll say, "Oh, okay, I'll take $10,000 up front. That's great." So you go away, you make the book, you take the $10,000, and then you start to get royalties for the first $100 or $1,000. You don't make any money on those royalties. For the first $9,000, you don't make any royalties. But after it reaches that threshold of 10,000, the advance that you've been paid, you then start making an extra on top. So you could potentially make an extra $1,000 a year royalties on the book projects. For the rest of your life, if the books keep selling. Half the books, like I say, that I've worked on haven't made their advance, which means they're still underneath that threshold, and they're not likely to make their advance either. Because if I sell a book and it makes 5 cents, per sale, I've got to sell, I don't know, 80,000 copies of a book in order to start breaking my advance, which is insane numbers. And I think we're now at a point where the How to Draw book market has kind of sunk a lot, and people are now turning to internet tutorials for things like that. So anyway, yeah, sorry to go off on tangents. That's just how I roll sometimes. But yeah, there are definitely creators with fewer followers that are making more money than those with higher subs. It's definitely true. I mean, it all depends I mean, it depends what type of content you're putting out. It depends on the type of artwork that you produce. There's just so many factors to it. And yeah, I think people are definitely craving connection, and the more personal and intimate, the better. I think that's probably why streams do well. Like, I don't really know streaming. Like, I've probably watched about 5 combined hours of like people streaming on Twitch or something like that. So I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't really know what you're supposed to do when you stream. But like, I'm sure I'm not doing it right, or I'm not engaging all the time or whatever. But yeah, it's streaming is probably like videos in general. It it's it's people probably not. It's people wanting connection with something that's real, because there's just so much fake shit in the world. Everything's manufactured and contrived and systematized, and we're not really meant to live like this. Like, I don't know whether people ever just wake up in the morning and think, this is just wrong. Like, we're not really even supposed to have houses. Like, the whole system that we live in, like, with the fact that we live in countries with millions of people all cohabiting, that's run by a central government, and that's just weird. For millions of years, the human species just didn't work like that, and then in the last, few thousand or hundred, things have just completely changed. And with the rise of the internet, and people like now spending hours in front of a screen, potentially listening to people like me, rant on in their ears while they're doing other things or whatever. It's like, it's weird, such a weird thing. So yeah, I'm just waiting to see Ben colour outside the lines. 6K. Yeah, sorry. You're probably responding to things that I've gone past, and I can't remember what I was talking about. So I apologise. Yeah, I don't watch anything until 1,000 views. Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, so this was this idea of sort of social proof and people not caring if something's popular. And yeah, I do it as well. I mean, in the last, have we watched 4 videos tonight? I think the second one only had 30 views, but I thought, I'll give her a chance to see what it's about. And you could tell it was like my stuff. It wasn't polished. It wasn't quite there. But she had some good words of wisdom. Good little tidbits of advice on money saving. But yeah, just generally, you can tell if someone has a lot of subscribers. Typically, it means that their content's good. I mean, I'm in a position where I feel like, for me personally, if I could beat, like 1,000 or 10,000, or if I could get like monetized and be entered into the content partner creator program on YouTube, then I would probably do more edits and tighten up my scripts and not just talk off the cuff, and try to be more eloquent and articulate and not waffle. But I can't really be bothered, because if I'm putting out a video and it's only going to get 100 views, what's the point? And it's one of those chicken and egg things. It's kind of like, well, what comes first, the good quality video or the subscribers? And I suppose every individual needs to work out themselves what they should be doing with that. I think 6K might have been how many subscribers you were mentioned you had, which was good. If you did have 6K, that's a lot of people. So Philip says, I don't think the how-to books sell, but a collection of work by an artist they like, that's what people are more likely to jump on. Yeah, I think so. I think I could imagine people still buying books by other artists as like collection pieces, things that people would, like to have to collect. In fact, I know one of my subscribers runs a YouTube channel where he just talks about art books that he's got, where he collects and goes through the artwork in it and talks about that. I think there's always going to be a space for that. Yvonne, you're doing great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I played a game called Things You Would Do If You Were President. Okay. And what would you do if you were president? What would you do if you were ruler of the world? It's an interesting question. I would probably not want to change too much because I don't feel like I think I could easily twist a few dials with how things work and it completely mess up the system without me realizing the knock-on effects of what I'd just done. Things are complicated, but there's also some things which seem to be the right thing to do, and everyone thinks that their way of doing things is the right way to do it. You know, like people in positions of power. But I think if you're someone who's not in a position of power, at least you've got the ability to say that you're not somebody who craves power. Otherwise, you would already be in a position of power. And if you were, then you're probably not the sort of person that should be in a position of power. If that makes sense, it doesn't. But what I'm saying is, like, for example, politicians often become politicians because they want to be in a position of influence. But the people who would probably be better off to lead our countries would probably not be politicians. They would just be wise, sensible, good-hearted, kind, empathetic people. But those aren't the sort of people who would want to run countries, that would want to be in positions of status and power, unfortunately. So, okay, MMR, I just gooned to this. Well, gooned to this stream or gooned to the artwork. Either way, that's pretty crazy, but I hope you enjoyed yourself. So yeah, anyway, on that note, on that nice high classy note, I might have to leave it there because it's getting pretty late here. It's like nearly 20 to 3 in the morning and I'm really tired. But yeah, appreciate the comments and people stopping by, checking out what I'm watching, what I'm thinking about, and this whole issue of art becoming professional. I think there's always something to learn with these videos as well. Like, even if it's just going over the same ideas, the same things you already know, that it just sort of reinforces the fact that okay, stop worrying about the numbers. Concentrate on the quality, or concentrate on making my art better, or stop. Yeah, that. So so last one, yeah. So things you'd like to own. Well, what would you like to own? Like, if you could choose to own one thing, any one thing that you don't own right now, what would that be? I mean, for me, it would have to just be right now a house of my own. I'm saving up for one. I'm hoping to buy one next year, but circumstances have meant being in a position where I don't own a house, but I have savings, and that will hopefully pay dividends next year when I finally get to buy and have something that I can kind of call my own. But yeah, own outside of just like good relationships with people and things like that. I pretty much got everything I want, really. Like, you can always have like a better home or a better car. Like, I've got like a big Wacom graphics tablet, and I've got a laptop that does what I need it to do. A better phone would be nice. Like, I'm using an old, I think this phone that I've got here, it cost me like £250 about 3 years ago. It's a Galaxy A52, I think. And I wouldn't mind having like the latest Samsung Galaxy phone, but I'm an Android user, you see, and a PC user. So yeah, sorry about that to the Apple fanboys and fangirls out there. But yeah, I think a new phone would be good. Because I use this phone, funnily enough, this is what I use to record YouTube videos in normally. Right now I'm on a shitty little webcam, but yeah, I use the phone, and I noticed that it started like flickering and getting this weird banding stuff on some of the videos. And it'd be good just to not have that. And a few people have said, get a dedicated DSLR camera but yeah, camera for your videos. Bring up the quality a little bit better, so it looks as though I'm at least I look the part with the whole YouTube endeavour. But yeah, it's just again the sort of following the subscribers, the shit that I talk about. I don't think it's very popular, and the way that I talk about it isn't very polished. So I don't think it's really worth doing that right now. But yeah, I don't know. I feel pretty good. I think, like I say, I'm now in my early 40s, and by the time you get to your early 40s, most people have got all the stuff they need. They have a wardrobe of clothes, and they have tech and devices that they want. I'm not really that materialistic, which is just as well. Having chosen to gone into the art and design space, I think anyone that wants to be an artist should consider that kind of minimalist lifestyle, because for the majority, I don't think it's going to be one of affluence and big spends and stuff. But yeah, I think ultimately just life is good if you have good people around you. You're doing work that you find interesting and meaningful, and that's all I want, really. So yeah, same. Now Final Cut is really easier. I'm not trying to push Apple. Yeah, my experience with Apple products is they are normally easier. Just using an Apple is easier. Like, I would normally recommend, if people get a new computer or a laptop or a tablet, that they get an get an iPad or an iPhone or a Mac. Basically, because it is easier to use. The only reason I wouldn't recommend it to people like my parents or my parents' friends is because I can't diagnose their problems if something goes wrong. I'm actually very techie and nerdy when it comes to software and PCs and things like that. So if a graphics card breaks, or a hard disk fails, or if their operating system goes buggy, I can normally resolve it if it's someone else's PC. But if it's a Mac, I'm not very familiar with stuff like that. So yeah. Oh, you saw the glitch. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna watch back this stream as well, just to see how weird all the buffering has been on it, because I know the last one had some shitty buffering. I feel really bad about anyone who's attempted to log on and watch this and has sort of realised the quality's really shitty and they've just logged back out again. Yeah, I would like to fix that. Thing is, YouTube doesn't have like a test mode where you can do, because basically you want to effectively do like a test stream just to see how it works. And like I say, I'm not really a streamer. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So yeah, I'm kind of winging it. I'm hoping it all just works. Like, I don't know. Like I'm using OBS as my kind of capturing software. A lot of people use this OBS thing, and I decided to try lowering the bit rate, whatever the fuck that means, in order to hopefully stream easier and lower the quality a little bit, but hopefully it not be quite so laggy. Maybe that did something. I'll have to look back and check. Yeah, same, just replace the storage drive. Oh yeah, I mean, I've got one of the drives. It's an M2 drive in my laptop. it has been an intermittent. It's kind of like failing intermittently. So I contacted the manufacturer. I think it was, I can't remember who it was. It was Acer maybe, or Crucial or something. And I've said I've got this problem, and then they've said to me, oh, well, we could potentially replace it, but we're going to need to know the serial number and all this kind of stuff. And that means taking my laptop all apart, and that will take me like half an hour because there's like 20 million screws to undoing it. So I've been putting it off because at the moment the hard disk drive is behaving itself, but I know that there's a problem there. And I know that there's a problem there not only because sometimes it fails to load data, but it was initially my operating